Blog Talk Radio.
Glory to the Most High Jah, Rastafari, King of Kings, Lords of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, elect of God, light of the world, is His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie. Protect my son David as he travel this lonely path. Steer my son far from bloody men who surround him with opinions sharp as daggers. Bless him with a vision to distinguish friends from foes. Bless his listeners with overstanding and patience. Remind the critics that all judgment belongs to thee. May the words of thy mouth and the meditation of thy heart be acceptable in thy presence, Selah.
Love, yeah.
Rastafari Salomon Nimal Arsu
These are also the Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied out.
Log on to
www.blogtalkradio.com/discipleship radio.
Out in the street, they call it
Rastafari.
The Proverbs, Chapter 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels, to understand the proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent, without cause, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us, let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path. for their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent, without cause, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit, we shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us, let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent, without cause, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit, we shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us, let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood, they lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the street. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the street. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and ye refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you. Then shall they call upon me, I will not answer. They shall seek me early, they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel, they despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil.
My advice to all is to fulfill the Ten Commandments.
Salamta Beteseb. Greetings and welcome, family, to this special episode of Wisdom Wednesday with the Rastamandem here on Discipleship Radio.
Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live, 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 and ye shall live. And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. And when I beheld, lo, the sinews of the flesh came up upon them, and the skin covered them above. There was no breath in them. Then said he unto me, Prophesy unto the wind. Prophesy, Son of Man, and say to the wind, Thus saith the Lord God, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live, 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 that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O my people, I will open your graves, and cause you to come up out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. And ye shall know that I am the Lord, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall ye know that I, the Lord, have spoken it, and performed it, saith the Lord. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick, and write upon it, For Judah and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick, and write upon it, For Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes. And say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. And one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places, wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their God. And David my servant shall be king over them. And they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments, and observe my statutes, and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children, forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore.
What is true?
And David my servant shall be king over them. They all shall have one shepherd.
It is good that you are here to record this picture of me in my palace garden at Addis Ababa. People who see this throughout the world will realize that even in the 20th century, with faith, courage, and a just cause, David will still beat Goliath.
And David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children, forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Evermore. 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 Evermore.
Chaverim, Shalom Talmudim, Shalom brothers and sisters, Chaverim, my associates, Talmudim, fellow disciples. Here we're at the Wednesday, midway day in this Shabua here, the fourth day of the Shabua. Here we're in the 30th weekly Torah reading and feeding, this manna, this angel's bread for Kedoshim, Kedoshim, holy ones, set apart ones, in a latter sense, quote, saints, end quote. But the key idea is set apartness or holy ones. So here we're at Kedoshim, 30th sabbatical study. Here we're at the fourth day of the Shabua. We have today's daily psalm. According to the royal order, we have Psalm 2. The second psalm right here. So here at the middle of the Shabua, right here, the middle of the week, the fourth day in the week, we have the fourth and the fifth aliyot right here. And also to unpack, as we have been going through this Shabua, some of the practical ethics and practical application of Yah's direction, Yahweh Eloheinu's directions, instructions. As it says right here, you shall love We'ahavta le'ra'aika kamoka, to love your neighbor, ra'aika, as yourself, kamoka. That right there, the golden rule, the kedusha, the holiness or set apartness code, right there. So here, let's write up
sabbatical
right
study. This I Rastafari sabbatical study for this Shabbat strong.
Shema Yisrael.
Here for the Revi'i, here for the fourth Aliyah for Wayikra Kedoshim for the 30th RSS Rastafari sabbatical study. Here in a double portion, it is the Sheshi, the sixth Aliyah, Ka Shahain Mahov. In a double portion, the fourth, the Revi'i Aliyah for Kedoshim, for holy ones, Isla ones, set apart ones, Kedoshim, the Revi'i Kedoshim. In a double portion is the Sheshi Aliyah. It's the sixth Aliyah, Ka Shahain Mahov. Here, picking up with Leviticus chapter 19, here at verse 33. Weki Yagor Iteka Ger Be Arezekem Lo Tonu Oto. And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, y'all shall not do him wrong. Wiki Yagora Iteka Gera Be Arezekem Lo Tonu Oto. And if a stranger Wiki Yagor, and if Yagor, a stranger sojourner, Iteka, with the I, Iteka, Ger, stranger sojourners, if sojourners with the I, a stranger, Wiki Yagor, Iteka, Ger, Be Arezekem, in your land, Be Arezekem, in your Aretz, Be Arezekem, Lo Tonu Oto, ye y'all shall not do him wrong. Lo,
and here at verse 33, the ending of the Shalishi, and here we have the Rebbe'i, the fourth Aliyah for Shabbat Kedoshim at verse 33. Wiki Yagura Iteka Gera Be Arezekem Lo Tonu Oto. The Revi at verse 33, and if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, y'all shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be to you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. For y'all, were strangers in the land of Mitzrayim, the land of Egypt. Ani Yahuwah Elohim, I be Jehovah, your Elohim. Y'all shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in meat yard, in weight, or in measure. Just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin shall ye all have. Ani Yahuwah Elohim. I be the Yahweh, he who be, your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. Therefore shall ye all observe all my statutes and all my judgments and do them. Ani Yahuwah, I be Jehovah, he who be. Third book of Moshe, Hebrew book called Leviticus chapter 20. And here at chapter 20, we have the Hamishi, the fifth Aliyah, beginning off here, third book of Moshe, Hebrew book of Leviticus chapter 20 for the Hamishi. Why daberi Yahuwah, and Jehovah spoke. Why daber Yahweh el Moshe leimor, and the Yahweh spake to Moshe leimor, saying, Illa b'nei Yisrael tomar ish Mia b'nei Yisrael umina Hagar Yisrael asher yiten miyazaro la molek mota yumata haaretz yirgemuhu ben. Again, thou shalt say to the B'nai Yisrael, whosoever he be, of the B'nai Yisrael, of the sons, the children of Yisrael, or of the strangers that sojourn in Yisrael, that giveth any of his seed to Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I will set my face against that man, and will cut him off from among his people, because he hath given of his seed to Molech, to defile my sanctuary, and to profane my holy name, to profane my set apart name. And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man, when he giveth of his seed to Molech, and kill him not, then I will set my face, my perception against that man and against his family, and will cut him off, and all that go a whoring after him, to commit whoredom with Molech from among their people. And the soul, the nefesh, the psyche, that turneth after such as have familiar spirits, obia, and after wizards, to go a whoring after them, I will even set my face, my perception against that nefesh, against that psyche, against that soul, and will cut him off from among Amo, his people. Ameha. Sanctify yourselves, therefore, and be ye all holy, set apart ones. Ki ani Yahuwah Elohim, for I be he who be, your Elohim.
That brings us right here, the evening psalm for the fourth day of the Shavuot, the standing psalm. Here we have Psalm 94 here for the fourth day. That's called amongst the nations, the Gentiles, known as Wednesday. Fourth day of the Shavuot right here, standing psalm, Psalm 94, evening psalm.
ד' אל נקמות אדוני, אל נקמות הופיע, הנשא שופט הארץ, השב גמול על גאים. עד מתי רשעים אדוני, עד מתי רשעים יעלוזו, יביעו ידברו עתק, יתאמרו כל פועלי אבן. עמך אדוני ידכאו, ונחלתך יענו, אלמנה וגר יהרוגו, ויתומים ירצחו. ויאמרו לא יראה ולא יבין אלוהי יעקב. בינו בוערים בעם, וכסילים מתי תשכילו. הנוטע אוזן הלא ישמע, אם יוצר עין הלא יביט. היוסר גויים הלא יוכיח, המלמד אדם דעת. אדוני יודע מחשבות אדם, כי הם הבל. אשרי הגבר אשר תייסרני יה, ומתורתך תלמדנו. להשקיט לו מימי רע, עד יקרא לרשע שחת. כי לא יטוש אדוני עמו, ונחלתו לא יעזוב. כי עד צדק ישוב משפט, ואחריו כל ישרי לב. מי יקום לי עם מרעים, מי יתייצב לי עם פועלי אבן. לולא אדוני עזרת לי, כמעט שכנה דומה נפשי. אם אמרתי מה תרגלי, חסדך אדוני יסעדני. ברוב שר אפי בקרבי, תנחומך ישעשעו נפשי. היי חברך כיסא אבות, יוצר עמל עלי חוק. יגודו על נפש צדיק, ודם נקי ירשיעו. ויהי אדוני לי למשגב, ואלוהי לצור מחסי. וישב עליהם את אונם, וברעתם יצמיתם. יצמיתם אדוני אלוהינו, 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 אלוהינו.
My Hebrew, boy, everything takes time.
Psalm 94. O Lord God, to whom vengeance belongeth, O God, to whom vengeance belongeth, show thyself. Lift up thyself, thou judge of the earth. Render a reward to the proud. Lord, how long shall the wicked triumph? How long shall they utter and speak hard things, and all the workers of iniquity boast themselves? They break in pieces thy people, O Lord, and afflict thine heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger, and murder the fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord shall not see, neither shall the God of Jacob regard it. Understand, ye brutish among the people, and ye fools, when will ye be wise? He that planted the ear, shall he not hear? He that formed the eye, shall he not see? He that chastiseth the heathen, shall not he correct? He that teacheth man knowledge, shall not he know? The Lord knoweth the thoughts of man, that they are vanity. Blessed is the man whom thou chastenest, O Lord, and teachest him out of thy law, that thou mayest give him rest from the days of adversity, until the pit be digged for the wicked. For the Lord will not cast off his people, neither will he forsake his inheritance. But judgment shall return unto righteousness, and all the upright in heart shall follow it. Who will rise up for me against the evildoers, or who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? Unless the Lord had been my help, my soul had almost dwelt in silence. When I said, my foot slippeth, thy mercy, O Lord, held me up. In the multitude of my thoughts within me, thy comforts delight my soul. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous, and condemn the innocent blood. But the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. And he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, the Lord our God shall cut them off.
Rastafari is the law. Down to now. Rastafari is the law. Rastafari is the law. Rastafari the law. Down to now. Rastafari is the law. Rastafari is the law.
My advice to all is to fulfill the Ten Commandments. You are aware of the contents of the Ten Commandments and can elaborate on. If the nation for which I am the emperor follows and accepts this, since it's also what I accept and follow. I would believe our country is not only historically Christian, but also actively Christian.
So right here, Shalom family, greetings to Yadin right here. So we have Kiddoshim, Holy Ones, set apart ones here, and speaking of the commandments, right? Not just the 10 words, but here we have practical ethics in practice. So I'd like to pick up with this and continue with where we had left off from previous. I love this tune right here, just to share this. Let's see if we'll have time to share this right here. I think we may just get right in it. But just pick up right here, Kedoshim.
אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי. לא תישא את שם אדוני אלוהיך לשווא. זכור את יום השבת לקדשו. כבד את אביך ואת אמך. לא תרצח, לא תנאף, לא תגנוב. לא תענה ורעך עד שקר. לא תחמוד בית רעך.
So right there. All right, the 10 words. But what do we have here? So we're in Kedoshim, fully enunciated. That's that special click, the off right there. Kedoshim or Kedoshim, special K right there. As we mentioned with this overview for Parashat Kedoshim, it begins with the call. There's a call, many a call. A calling out in a new covenant sense, Brit Chadash sense, right? The Kedusha is a set apartness called holiness. From the root word, the Kadash, root word that means set apart, but is translated someplace as holy, as consecrated or sanctified. There's personal holiness, personal Kedusha. Kedusha is called sanctification. So in the context of the English, personal holiness, set apartness, Kedusha in the biblical Hebrew is called, in English, sanctification. And it implies separation from chet, sin, uckery, forfeiture, lack, missing the mark, and impurity. The faithful in Adonenu Yeshua, right, in Ha'adon Yeshua, Geta Yesus, the Lord Jesus, have and, quote, implied, imputed holiness. Let me come again with that. Those who believe in the King of Kings Christ, Yeshua HaMoshiach, in Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, have and, quote, imputed holiness, imputed holiness. Now, here we have First Corinthians chapter 1, verse 30. So let's just take the time right here. When going through our notes, our study notes, it's always good to find the time, make the time, really take the time, to look up some of the quotes and the points of reference in scripture. And, study to shew yourself approved. So here, 1 Corinthians, and as the King of Kings teach I and I to know the truth for yourself. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, here at verse 30, concerning this imputed, another way of saying this inputted. All right, so that not that one has this holiness per se, but it is inputted, like you input it, like you extend like grace, so to speak. But here, first let's go to the script, 1 Corinthians chapter 1 at verse 30. What does it read? It says, but of him are ye, are y'all, are you all, I and I, all of us. But of him are ye in Christ Jesus, in Moshiach, the Messiah's anointed Yeshua, who of Elohim is made to us, to I and I, wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption. Again, this is to give a context, right, to this practical ethics, this genuine, as the King of Kings speaks, genuine morality, which is the practical ethics, that here we get a Kedusha code here in this Torah reading and feeding Kedoshim. Personal holiness being called, quote, sanctification. And this implies a separation, building on these themes, a separation from chet, from sin, from ukri, from fukri, from forfeiture, from lack, from impurity. Believers, called, chosen, and faithful in Ha'adon Yeshua, have an imputed or imputed holiness, kedusha, set apartness. And this, in translation, this personal set apartness or holiness is called sanctification. So here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 at verse 30, we have this written, but of him are ye, are y'all, speaking to us, but of him are ye, are y'all in Moshiach, Yeshua, in Christos Christ Jesus, who of Elohim is made to us, wisdom, 1, and righteousness, 2, and sanctification, this is the personal kedusha, and redemption, including here verse 31, this is the end of the chapter right here, but add verse 31 since there's a colon here, so the thought goes on, that according as it is written, key verse that Gormawi Negus Neges, His Imperial Majesty, says when asked about his faith, as it is written, we believe, we admit, as it is written. Here we have what is written, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 30, and here verse 31, that according as it is written, he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. He that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. Now, here's a good question. When you hear it said, it is written, let him glory in Jehovah, Yahweh. When you hear it said, it is written, aren't you ever curious that, like, well, where is it written? Prove these things for ourselves. That according as it is written. Where is it written? It's written in Jeremiah, Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 24. So let's go there. This is what it means, here a little and there a little. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Because therefore, in Corinthians, being familiar with the Nabim, the prophets, a quote is made. Being familiar with the HaTorah, the Hebrew scriptures, a quote is made. So when if we're coming in the new covenant, the Brit Chadasha, even there it shows the importance of the Brit Yeshana, what's known as the so-called Old Testament or the Scriptures, as the New Covenant calls it the Scriptures. It says the Scriptures. That's what one's called the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. Here we have Jeremiah chapter 9, and let's scroll here to verse 24, reading the hard copy here. It says, but let him that glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am Ani Yahweh, he who be HaKadosh, Holy One, Baruch Hu, blessed be he, Baruch Hashem, blessed be the name, who exercise loving kindness. See that word right there, exercise. See, practice makes perfect. Exercise. He who be Yahweh Eloheinu is the one who exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. In the earth. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yahweh, saith Jehovah. Here. So here, just to point this out right here, just to get a better even footing on this theme here in Kedoshim, set apart ones, holy ones. So here we have a call. Kedoshim, the 30th sabbatical study, begins with the call to the Bnei Yisrael to be set apart, right? To be Kadosh in the singular sense, but in the collective singular as used in the Hebrew, Kedoshim, and on account of the relationship, not religion, right? Relationship, not custom and even tradition, but relationship. There's a relationship with the Kadosh Yisrael, the set apart one or the holy one of Yisrael. So this manna, angel's bread right here, this Torah reading and feeding, it focuses on defining a Kedusha code that contains right here in this Torah reading and feeding, the 30th, as we pick up with Leviticus chapter 19, verse 1 to chapter 20, verse 27, for this Shabua right here, contains more commandments or mitzvot, imperatives, both the positive and the negative. Both the mitzvot aseh, to do, mitzvot aseh, to do, and mitzvot, the commandments, the imperative, lo ta'aseh, not to do. Right? So the commandments together, all in all, there are the positive commands and there's the negative commands. But here, with this Kedusha, this holiness, set apartness code, we have more imperatives, commandments regarding practical ethics, as one who say real world ethics, practical morality, genuine morality, real world morality than any other portion, reading and feeding of HaTorah. So it begins with Yahweh, Jehovah, saying to Moshe to speak to the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, and to say to them, Kedoshim Tehiyu, y'all are to become Kedoshim, set apart ones, holy ones. Now, in the New Covenant sense, holy ones, the Kedoshim, in the New Testament sense, they translate into English as saints. But so we could get a more better operative meaning. So, saints, holy ones, consecrated ones, sanctified ones. The Hebrew basic sense is set apart ones, but this is those who are called out. In the Brit Hadasha sense, especially those who are called out from the world, flesh, and satanic seclorum and system of things to serve Elohim. These are the Kedoshim Chabarim, the Kedoshim. But here we have the context with the direction, instruction, the Torah given to Israel through Moshe, where here it says, y'all shall be set apart ones, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am holy. The Hebrew, Kedoshim, Tihiyu, from the higher sense, to be, to become. Kedoshim, Tihiyu. Y'all are to be set apart ones. Kedoshim, Tihiyu. Ki, for, or ki in the Hebrew, ki, because, ki kadosh ani, because holy, set apart I, because I am holy. Ki kadosh ani, Yahweh, he who be, Elohim, y'all Elohim. So here now picking up, we went through a few examples in this Torah reading and feeding, from the call to Kedusha, to set apartness,
in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2, pointing out in this Torah reading and feeding, this call to Kedusha, set apartness, and to becoming Kedoshim is 3 times. You have 3 times that Hebrew Trinity, the true Trinity, of the Elohim, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov and Jacob, the God of the Trinity. Here we have Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2. Chapter 19, verse 2, Kedoshim there. In Leviticus chapter 20, verse 7, we have Kedoshim there. Really love this verse here, but the English kind of might throw it off a little bit. It says, consecrate yourselves. As we zoomed in and highlighted, the Hebrew is with Hita Kadish Tem. With an Hit Kadish Tem. Where Hita Kadish Tem, where Hita Kadish Tem. Kadishatem. In other words, make yourselves. In other words, do this action, setting yourselves apart with Hiyitem and becoming Kedoshim. So understand the Hebrew, the direct sense. The English says, consecrate yourselves therefore and be holy. That's generally there, but as we study and show ourselves approved, the Hebrew has the understanding, intelligent read of the Hebrew is by setting yourselves apart and becoming set apart ones. This is the idea. By setting yourselves apart, where Hita Kadish Shetem, and becoming holy ones, where Hiyitem Kedoshim, and becoming set apart ones. That's the second of the 3 times in this Torah reading and feeding for Shabbat Kedoshim. And thirdly, same chapter, Leviticus 20, at verse 26, beginning with the same verb, where Hiyitem. Hiyitem, right? The construct there is from Haya. We have Haya, even the name of Yahweh, right? Yahweh, Yahweh. Some will say Yahweh, so forth and so on. But be that as it may, the root Haya, to be, to become. Wehiyitem, now speaking to you all. Wehiyitem, and all of your becoming. Wehiyitem li Kedoshim, and becoming for me. Yahuwah is saying Jehovah Eloheinu, and becoming for me. So it's a process of being. It's a process of becoming, right? So we have such practical applications, such as honoring parents and keeping Shabbat. So the connection between honoring the parents, our mother and father, interesting of interest here, we get a rephrasing of the 10 words known as the 10 Commandments here, the Esareta Debarim here. But what's interesting when we look at some of the details, here we have, y'all show fear or reverence mother and father. In the 10 Commandments, 10 words that we have in Exodus chapter 20, it says to honor. Right? It says to honor thy father and thy mother. One would say, oh, whoa, this is just semantics. That's why I said study to shew thyself approved. Don't pay attention to the semantics. You're not studying. You're going to be disapproved because you're going to be assuming something that if you studied a little bit more, you would be broken out of or enlightened, taken out of that assumption. So we have honoring parents, father and mother, but here it says to reverence. Here it says, thou shalt reverence. Thou shalt reverence thy mother and father and observe my Sabbaths, both the weekly Sabbath, notice it's Shabtotai, Sabbaths in Leviticus 19 and 3, because we have the weekly Sabbath and the Sabbaths of the holy appointments. And it's very interesting to see how these feasts and festivals have their Brit Chadasha, their new covenant fulfillment, but also observance in spirit and truth in Moshiach, in the Messiah Yeshua. We also have honoring Yahweh, Jehovah, by abstaining from good for nothings. In the English, in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 4, it speaks about from idols. In the Hebrew, we say Elilim, the Elil singular, Elilim, abstaining, turning away from Al Tifnu, Ilaha Elilim, Welohe Maseka, and from gods, molten gods, Lo Ta'asu Lakem,
Lo ta'asu lakem. Not to follow after, not to do. Prohibition against, generally speaking, idolatry. But I find it to be interesting that word for idol, Elohim, the Elohim, the Elohim, not the Elohim, but the Elohim, are basically good for nothing, things of no value, or you can call them idols, as the translator did. This is basically a prohibition against what is called Abodah Zara, strange service. Avodah, service, like work, service, Abodah Zara. Interesting, because that same word root there for strange or foreign, it's almost like from foreign service to other people's good for nothing ideologies, religious, whatever. That's good for them, but not for us in this covenant. That's the sense here. Also, we have in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 9, this is going over some of the practical. In other words, this is all part of what he means when he says, you shall be set apart. Essentially, now people say, well, they holy. Even in the new covenant sense, the principle, the spirit of this is there, right? We get more of the substance of this. For example, as we mentioned about, okay, does that mean in the new covenant we can not respect our parents in that sense? Just a basic principle. Not keep the Shabbats, the appointments, the feasts, the festivals. So how will we do this in remembrance of Moshiach? Does that mean we don't honor Yahuwah, that we can follow after the good for nothings, the Zara, the Abodah Zara? But this is interesting here as we get to Leviticus 19:9, when it speaks about the leaving of the gleanings of your harvest, of the harvest for the poor. Speaking about leaving the gleanings, that means that the landlord tells us, Yahweh Eloheinu, and told them that, well, he's the landlord. So one of the ways we would pay rent, one of the questions I always had was, well, we talk about paying bills and paying rent and different things, different bills that we have, and we're in the world, not of it, but these are practical reality. But then I just thought, I said, well, how did they pay bills before? And people say, well, what sort of bills? All right. Like, did they have rent? Well, for the Israelites, it wasn't rent, but part of keeping these things and doing these things, even in the Kedusha code, and even the feast, the festivals, the offerings, and such on the tithes, this was all a part of that giving, right, to Yahuwah, through giving to the priest, through keeping his commandments. Remember, he makes us set apart. Asher Kedishanu, right, the one who makes us holy or set apart, Kedishanu b'mitzvotayo, right, by way of his commandments. So the idea is, as we keep and do and fulfill what he says to do, this is how we are set apart in his eyes. The problem is people want to be holy in men and people eyes, but be that as it may, there's the command about leaving the gleanings of your harvest for the poor. That means as we harvest the land, we don't make a clean riddance of everything. Even if one were to leave behind like a bushel or something like that in the field, after they bring everything else in, they are to leave it. They are to leave it. This is a very interesting part. I want to zoom in a little bit right here again, because this connects directly here with the reasoning on tithes, right? Because many of us have a partial, most ones have at best a partial understanding of tithes, because most have been exposed to what many different Christian and even the black community, the black church, especially the Latter-day Prosperity pimps and so forth and so on have done with the whole point of tithes. It's interesting, they'll say we're not under, the law, statutes, and commandments, but they'll go for the tithes. Ain't that interesting? They will dismiss other things in the Old Testament. They'll point out tithes in the New Testament sense, all right? But then there's a lot of other things we can point to in the New Testament that points to the Old Testament. But just to point out their hypocrisy. Here we have Leviticus 19:9. Let's get this verse 19:9. Here's the full verse here, KJV. And when ye all reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly, to say completely, wholly reap the corners of thy field.
neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. Now, with what we know or assume or can see of today, this is a 180 degrees. You think? 180 degrees opposite of what most of us would think would be the correct. Now, I don't know how well ones understand what's being said here, so let's just get a little breakdown and build. Of course, I want to bring up the Hebrew so I can see where the KJV is right and accurate and where it might be a little bit off, full of the verse right here. U be kutz rekem. U be kutz rekem. Kutz rekem. Okay, reaping. Yeah. U be kutz rekem et kitzir aretz ekem. Et kitzir aretz ekem. The part about when you'll reap the harvest, right? The kitzir, the harvest of Aretz Ekem. Aretz, the earth, Aretz Ekem. Aretz Ekem, of your land. Lo tekale. You shall not. Tekale is from kala, right? Kala is a root word here in the Hebrew sense. The context here, tekale, is to accomplish, to cease, to consume, to determine, the sense of end, finish, like completing something, right? Like to be complete, right? Completely accomplishing in the sense of, let's go into Strong's. Strong's usually bring out the primitive root sense pretty good, to end, right? In the intransitive sense, to cease, be finished, perish. But in the transitively here is like to complete, right? To consume. So when the translator translates, it brings out the Hebrew sense of lo tekale, right? Lo tekale, as thou shalt not wholly reap. Thou shalt not wholly reap. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly, completely reap the corners of your field. Note that Jehovah here, Eloheinu, Aina Elohim, is focusing, notice, on the corners of the field, right? Of the corners of the field. He says at this time, and notice we're in the time of the counting of the Omer, after Pesach, and after the Reishis, the Bikurim, first fruits, that correspond to the day that Moshiach risen, on that morrow after the Shabbat day, the first day of the Shabuah, counting those 7 Shabbats, those 7 weeks, Shabuot, feast, festival of weeks. This is all leading up to the fulfillment of the harvest time. So understanding the agricultural, the on-the-ground significance of this. I think it's important. No, I know it's important to understand the on-the-ground significance of this, to understand the spiritual application of this. If you miss one on one level, you're going to miss the next on the next level. Notice how even Moshiach said, if I show you earthly things and, you don't get the earthly things, you're not going to be able to get the heavenly things. But here, lo tekale pa'at sadika, pa'at, the corners of sadika, of your field. Liksor, where leket, kitzirka, lo tilaket, lo tilakate, lo tilakate. So here's the second part of the verse. Neither shalt thou gather, neither shalt thou lakat, pick up, gather, that's the sense of glean. Lakat, to gather up by gleaning, to gather up by picking up. It says, lo, that's where we're at right here. Yeah. It says, Wilaket ketzirka lo tilakate. Lo tilakate. You will not lakat, you will not pick up every little, stalks and stuff like that, right? Completely clean everything. So it's beer. You're not going to make it beer. Neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And furthermore, we're instructed that this is for the poor. So the gleanings are known as the leket, right? The gleanings, right? To
gather is to like when we pick it up, that which falls when we lakat, the leket is what falls. So we lakat, right? The verb of picking up, gathering, and then what like falls down, the bundle, so forth and so on. If there's some stalks here or there, we're not going to like sweep up the whole ground. We're going to leave that there for the poor. This is very important, once again, because every farmer in Yisrael was required to put aside a corner of his field, the Pe'at Sadekah, the eye field. So take in the word of the command from Leviticus 19:9, Pe'at, the corner, Sadekah, speaking to a male singular, thy field, thy Sadeh. Sadeh, the word alone, Sadeh, field, Sadekah, the eye. If I'm speaking to a man's field, I say Pe'at Sadekah, in the corner of your field, the eye field. So it's required to put aside, some bring this out as a corner of his field, right, for poor people to glean from the harvest. This is a mitzvah. This is a commandment called the Peyah. Peyah in the Hebrew is the edge. Peyah is the corner, to say like the edge, directly the edge, the Peyah. Generally, a farmer would leave 1/50th of his crop as Peyah for the poor. So that means of that whole piece of land, right, we say 49 or so parts, right, the farmer will farm and leave one portion. Now, others could leave 2 portions of it, but the general rule was a corner. And when we're reading it directly, right, let me come here, right here, because when we look at the Hebrew, it says in English, the corners. Let's look at this again. The corners. Here in the Hebrew, Peyat is the corner of thy field. So literally, one will leave a corner. Others might leave some corners, but you get the general idea. He would leave in faithful keeping, and this is part of holiness. Notice, this is also part of holiness. So he has a right, the farmer has a right to reap, right? But Yahuwah says to leave the corners. Other commandments for the farmers, they included, as we mentioned, the leket. The leket is the gleaning. The gleanings is like stalks, some of the stalks, leaving stalks for the poor. And the shikha is leaving harvested bundles. So the shikha is leaving harvested bundles for the poor that were accidentally left behind during the harvest. So it seems like this general idea. It's harvest time. Yahweh says, giving you the land, B'nai Yisrael, go harvest. But hey, this is my land. You're in covenant. This is my holiness code. Leave the corners of your field for the poor and leave the shikha, right, harvested bundles behind for the poor. So when we gather up everything, say one time and something's left behind, don't run behind and get it, and if a poor person say, oh, wow, hallelujah, look, there's some bundles here left behind, right? And you might say, well, we accidentally so-and-so, why didn't you get that? And now we run back to get it. No, that right there will be falling out of holiness. Because think about it for a moment. It's Yahweh. He is the landlord. It's his land, right? He has given us harvest and good harvest, right? And besides, this is a part of being Kedoshim Chaverim. So just after these commandments regarding leaving the gleanings for others, Leviticus 19:11, it repeats the 8th of the 10 words known as the 10 Commandments. So right after this, in Leviticus 19:11, there's a repetition of the 8th of the 10 words, Esoreta Debarim, known as the 10 Commandments, that indicates that forgetting the plight of the poor is equivalent to stealing from Jehovah's point of view. That's a very interesting medi right there. Remember, all of this has to do with holiness. All of this, and let's say this right here. When we just get the general idea in Christianity or among one-to-one, a general sense, it's not a condemning, it's just an observation, a witness. It's like you hear people talk about holy, they're holy and being so holy or be holy, such and such. And most of what Yahweh says right here, in spirit and in truth, is never applied, is never considered within most like churchianity's holiness point of view. Even many ones who promote holiness, we're about holiness and holiness and holiness. They never even address this because they probably think, well, that was just for the Israelites. There are principles here, right, that transcend the animal debtors and sacrifice, offering the blood that has been done away to the Brit Chadasha. These are practical applications because, as we said, note that when we get to Leviticus chapter 19 at verse 11, let's get the full verse. It says right here, the KJV, ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another. Now, of course, in the Bible, a lot of these individual verses, we can go to verse 11, go to verse 5, go to verse 10. We can get to individual verse, but if we read it together from verse 9 to 11, let's hear how it sounds. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly, completely reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And verse 10, and thou shalt not glean thy vineyard. That means take every single thing. Don't want to leave nothing behind. Neither shalt thou gather every grape. So it says every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. And note this right here, where it says, I am the Lord your God. Ani Yahweh Elohim. Why do you think that's there? I remember I often ask why in some places you see like, I am the Lord thy God, I am the Lord. You wonder like, okay, it's not everywhere, though you see it sometimes repeatedly in some places. It's because of this connection here with the next verse and what we're reasoning on. Ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another. So regarding these commandments that deals with business, see, a lot of people don't really recognize the holiness code. It covers business. It's business. So if you think, okay, drinking and smoking, is a sin, right? Of course, stealing, lying, fornicating, these are sins, but most people focus more on so-called drinking and smoking, and not that we are endorsing, per se, just drinking and smoking. But it's kind of interesting how they do the same thing that the Pharisees, scribes, and the rest of them were doing back then. This is why it's so important for the people, right, to be able to know the truth for themselves and to study, to shew themselves approved, and to know the scripture and to reason on these things to get a better understanding. So leaving the gleanings of your harvest for the poor is about holiness. It wasn't a prayer and worship service they're talking about or quoting scripture right here. You're harvesting the land. There's work to be done out here. It's not about what your doctrinal views about this or that is. No, it's the work that's to be done here. But the work being done in the proper way also accounts to or against one's holiness. I mean, what do you think Yeshua would do? What would Jesus do? What would he say to do? Right? It's my land. I could take everything. I'm the one who farm and I work my sweat and everything. It's all mine. Then, well, holiness is not yours. That's not all yours. But just after these commandments, right, in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 9 and 10, regarding leaving the gleanings for others. I keep thinking about this here with Ruth. Remember Ruth, the grandmother of Dawid, great-grandmother of King David? Isn't it interesting? That's how her and Naomi survived right there, because even Boaz and his fellow farmers, they observed when they talk about him being a righteous man. When they say righteous man, it meant that he kept with these things, these practical ethics and morality in business. Right? A righteous man, not that his doctrine, some kind of speculative thing that people be talking about today, and then in business, even among so-called believers, the business goes bad. You know what I mean? You're like, what? And then you do business with those in the world, and they can recognize some of these basic business ethics that now that we become wise to salvation is also a part of holiness, set apartness. Just after these commandments regarding leaving of the gleanings for others, there's a repetition of the eighth of the 10 words, the 10 commandments that indicate what? That indicate the forgetting the plight of the poor. And how do one forget the plight of the poor? Right? By reaping up everything, not leaving anything behind for nobody else to gather up because you greedy for everything. See, and from Yahweh's, Jehovah's point of view, from the Lord's point of view, this is equivalent to stealing. From his point of view, from his sight, you might think it's good and wise, but in Yahweh's sight, you are like a thief. Lying in general, of course, right, is also prohibited in the next verse. We get to verse 12 where it says, and ye shall not swear by my name falsely. Now, why does it say swear by my name falsely? Because we as Israel, right, we are in his name, right? He's the one who called Israel and you say created and birthed Israel from Mitzrayim, right? So by doing these acts, you know, even the heathens see you do this act to each other, to the poor of your own nation, right? And the first thing they're going to do is curse you, and by cursing you is curse your God, what kind of God you have, and that will be you swearing falsely by his name, where it says, neither shalt thou profane the name of Eloheka, of thy Elohim, by not leaving and considering and forgetting the plight of the poor, right, is to swear by his name falsely, is to profane his name. That's why he signs off on it. You know, like even in business today, when whoever the boss or whoever's in charge, things like go through and everything, and, you know, someone has to sign off or initialize it. So Yahweh right here is initializing it. Ani Yahweh, right? Because you can do this. It's your land, you know, you farm and everything, but you're going to have to deal with the landlord on those particular matters. So we get that there, and Leviticus 19:12, and that repeats the 9th of the 10 words, the 9th of the 10 words. Now, scrolling forward right here, what we have right here, the connective, right, is the types of tithes. This is where the several types of tithes is very important, right? The several types of tithes. What is a tithe? A ma'aser. What's the ma'aser? Ma'aser, right? We have a tithe, right? Generally speaking, but in the Torah, there are several types of tithes. So tithes generally is a tenth. It's like, say I have 100 cattle. I'm going to give you a tenth of my cattle. That means as I may have a gate or something like that, and let each one comes out, right? And every 10th one is yours. Every 10th one is yours. Every 10th one is yours. That's the sense of tithes, right? A tenth. But what are the different types of tithes that we have? Right? Prosperity, mega church pimps and pastors up in the pulpit, they never went into it. They kind of play freestyle with it, because remember they told you that we're not under the Old Testament thing. But then they point into the New Testament, talk about tithes, right? And say, well, the Israelites did it, but they never taught on this, because they taught ones on this. Ones will say, hey, why you always just asking for money? And why are you asking for it every week when I get my paycheck? You have to understand the principle here. For example, let's take tithe 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm connecting this right here with the part about the gleanings, you know, and leaving and considering the poor and leaving that portion for the poor, leaving the gleanings for the poor, not to glean and take everything, you know, leave something behind, right? That's also a way we're giving back both to Yahweh, right? We're giving to him. He commands us to do this, but it also benefits, you know, the poor within Yisrael. The first kind of tithe is the ma'aser behema. The ma'aser behema. What is the ma'aser or ma'aser behema? Ma'aser behema. Behema is cattle, right? This cattle is behema. Or somebody said behemoth, you know, behemoth cattle, but behema, right? All kosher cattle. When we say all kosher, kashrut cattle, right? That's according to what we have also in HaTorah, were tithes. and 1/10 of the animals, the living creatures, speaking about the behemoth, the kosher cattle, were brought to Jerusalem. 1/10 were brought to Jerusalem and offered, right, as a korban, a offering or sacrifice in the holy temple in the Haykal. This is point one, right? Before Jerusalem and the temple was brought to the tabernacle, right? The Maaser Behemoth. Actually, this right here, when we really think about it, they both are for the sacrifices, but also for the upkeep of the priests as well and the Levites, whose only inheritance and service was Yahweh, right? So those who served Yahweh, when we understand it, even in the Brit Chadash sense, the application. Secondarily, we have the Ma'aser Rishon. Ma'aser Rishon. What is the Ma'aser Rishon? Rishon means first, right? Like Yom HaRishon is like the first day of the Shabbat. They call Sunday Rishon, the first, the head, the first, in the sense of first. 1/10 of a farmer's produce. A tithe, 1/10 of Ma'aser of a farmer's produce was given to the Levite, to Ha-Lewi, who did not have their own portion of land in Yisrael. Check. So we have the second tithe, Ma'aser Rishon, and this is where 1/10 Ma'aser of a farmer's produce was given to the Levite, Ha-Lewi, to the Levite. Why? Because the Levite did not have their own portion of land in Yisrael. This was given to the Levite as a tithe. Now, this amounted to supporting the direct support of the priesthood of Yisrael. So the direct support of the priesthood of Yisrael was all covenant-keeping Israelites in keeping with Kedusha and set apartness, right? That's farmers, since that was the main business, the land. 1/10 of a farmer's produce was given to the Levite. And that was the support for the priesthood of Yisrael, right? As the first tithe, Ma'aser Behema, was also brought to the temple, right? And that supported the offerings and the sacrifices. Thirdly, we have the Ma'aser Sheni. The Ma'aser Sheni. What is the Ma'aser Sheni? Sheni means like second, in the sense of second. Yom HaSheni, right? The second day, HaShalishi, third, but Sheni, the second. The land, the Ma'aser Sheni, regards the land itself. The land itself was tithes. The land of Yisrael, the land of Yah people, was tithes a second Sheni, Ma'aser Sheni, a second, an additional. So Sheni meaning second, or in the sense of additional time. The land itself was tithes a second or additional time. After separating the Ma'aser Rishon, after separating the first tithe. So we have the Ma'aser Rishon, the first tithe. Then we have the Ma'aser Sheni, the second tithe, where the land itself was tithed a second Sheni, additional time, after separating the Ma'aser Rishon, the first Ma'aser, first tithe, on the, get this right here, on the first, second, fourth, fifth year of the 7-year sabbatical cycle. This produce was taken to Jerusalem, and eaten there. Who was it eaten there by? It was eaten there by the farmer, the Israelite, his family, servants, Levites, everyone who was worthy and could go, would go. Basically, this was put up for themselves. So notice the pastor and the preacher never talks about that tithe. That tithe is like putting away within a 7-year cycle, a little bit for when we do go, like at that, 7 years, we will have enough from the first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth of a 7-year cycle. Once again, the Ma'aser Sheni was where the land itself was tithed a second additional time after separating. So we had to separate one tithe from the next tithe. So we had the Ma'aser Rishon, that was a tenth of the farmer's produce. So when the farmer had produce, crops grow that income, as it were, right, of the ground and of the animals as well, but of the ground, in this case, was given to the Levites. But now with the Ma'aser Sheni and the land being tithed a second or additional time after separating the Ma'aser Rishon to support the priests, this was done on the first year, the second, the fourth, the fifth year of a 7-year sabbatical cycle. And then that produce was taken to Jerusalem and eaten by the families, there. That's why it says elsewhere, like if the way to Jerusalem is too long and it's too much to carry, one may convert that, whatever the value of the produce, that was separated for those years into money and bind it up into your hand, and one would go, would go there. So just to point this out and eat and just buy whatever they would like. But this was not giving all to the priest or to the pastor or to the church, right? There was like a portion that went to them, right? Like the portion, the Ma'aser Rishon. There was the Ma'aser Behema, for the animal sacrifice and offerings. Right now, we know in the Brit Chadasha, those are no longer necessary, right? Because of the virtue of the King of Kings Christ, and we're in the Brit Chadasha. But we can understand the principle. We need to understand the principle here. But it's a Ma'aser Sheni I would like to point one's attention to. Because in all that was said about tithes, I think what many have missed is that with the land itself being tithed a second time, separating the first tithe, Ma'aser Rishon, to support the priest, this will be done on the first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth year of the 7-year sabbatical cycle. So let's think about this. So that means if they went through the years, there's this 7-year, right, the 7-year cycle for the land, right? And what's interesting is that there would also be like that Shabbat for the land. There was to be that Shabbat, that rest for the land. People talk about crop rotation, so forth and so on. But what's interesting about land is that land can and does renew its, for lack of a better word, virginity. Did you know that? Land can become virgin land again. It's an interesting concept, right? Virgin land again. So with the sabbatical cycle, there's also that Shabbat for the land, where the land is not plowed, right, or harvested. It's allowed to, regenerate, so to speak. Now, we had the 3 tithes, Ma'aser Behema, Ma'aser Rishon, Ma'aser Sheni, the tithe of the cattle, the tithe, the first tithe, that supports the priest, and the second tithe over those 7 years that will be taken by the people, the families, and whoever's in their family circle to Jerusalem, and would be eaten there and enjoyed by the families, And then fourthly, we had the Ma'aser, Kesofim. Kesef is silver, so Ma'aser Kesofim. What is this right here? Now nowadays, the Ma'aser, right, Kesofim, points to what people might be more familiar with. Today, most tithing is done in terms of money. What is a money tithe called? The money tithe is the Ma'aser Kesofim. Ma'aser Kesofim. Ma'aser Kesofim, or the Ma'aser of the Kesef. Kesef. Like Kesef is silver. Actually, Kesef, yes, is silver. Right? The bur, right? Ethiopia is feeding the bur, the Kesef. This is the traditional term for the tithe on money income, and is distinguished from agricultural and cattle tithes. So nowadays, most tithing is done in terms of money. That is a tenth of the money, or the Ma'aser Kesofim. This is a traditional term, Ma'aser Kesofim, a tenth of the money, for the tithes on money income and is distinguished from agricultural and cattle tithes. Now, mainly, this is, even in Torah, the agriculture and the cattle tithe is the main context, but it does give stipulations that if one's tithes over a period of time was too much and the wait was too long, they could convert that, like sell that, convert that into money and bring the money or the kesef, the silver, forward. Every Yehudi, right, every Israeli Israelite then, and for I and I, we the black Jews of the line of the tribe of Judah, every Yehudi is obligated to give a tenth of his earnings to, I just want you to wait for it. They say, oh, the church, the synagogue, no, to charity. To charity, for tzedakah, to charity, a custom that goes back to Abraham. How do we know this custom goes back to Abraham? Well, let's go right here to the scripts, to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 14, verse 20. And blessed be El Elyon, the Most High El, the Most High Almighty Power, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him a tenth of ma'aser of everything. And he gave him what? Tithes, a tenth of everything. So that idea of giving, when we say charity in Hebrew, is actually the word tzedakah, or tzedakah. Tzedakah, coming from the root tzedek, and tzedek from the tzadak, means righteousness, just, and the context of how is it used in Hebrew and amongst those that understand for charity, and yet we can see in the word the root idea of righteousness and justice, because actually it means righteous giving. So every Yehudi, Rastafari, High Yehudim, is obliged to give a tenth of his earnings to tzedakah, righteous giving. This is a custom that goes back to Abraham in the Bereshit, Genesis chapter 14, verse 20. And Yaakov, Jacob, remember the patriarch Abinu Yaakov, our father Jacob, he pledged to Elohim that, quote, everything that the eye give me, that the eye give I will surely tithe to the eye. What did Yaakov pledge to Yahweh? Right? He said that everything that you give me, I will surely tithe to you. Everything that the eye give I will surely tithe to the eye. Here we have this, just to bring out the verse right here for reference, Genesis, Bereshit, 28 and 22. Here we read in the ESV, English Standard Version. And this stone that I have set up for a pillar, like a howlet, a obelisk, a stela, shall be God's house, or Beit El, Elohim's house, where we get the term Bethel, Beit El. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth, a full ma'aser to you, a full ma'aser. So here, just to point this out right here. So this is the link, right, with that part above that we shared right there. I'd like to go into even a little further detail as we move forward, but there are types of tithes, right? Types of tithes, right? And what's interesting is when it said the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Most ones are probably only familiar with the Ma'aser Kesofim, or what they would call the tenth of money tithe cents. But what we find is actually it's all of the kosher cattle that was tithed and brought forward, right, to the Jerusalem and presented as the temple as an offering sacrifice, the Ma'aser Rishon, the first tithe that amounted to the support of the priesthood, the Kohuna of Yisrael, the Ma'aser Sheni, where the land was tithed an additional second Sheni time after separating the first tithe for the support of the priesthood. But when it was done, just to emphasize this again, it was on the first the first year, the second year, the fourth year, and the fifth year of a 7-year sabbatical cycle. And lastly, but leastly, is the Ma'aser Kesofim, or the 10th of the money tithe right there. And as we said, this links here, methinks, and the reasoning with Leviticus 19 and 9, since it has a lot to do at the groundation. Because any silver that anyone got, usually it's because of a transfer of animal or of product from the land. So the land is so very important. And the landlord here says that we are not to forget the poor, and we're to leave the gleanings, like leave the surplus of our harvest to the poor, leaving the surplus, or the gleanings of the harvest to the poor. Let me look at the time right here. There's a couple of other areas we'd like to touch on right here. Let's just briefly fly over this, and then we'll get into a little more details, because we're just giving kind of an overview here, right? Just these 2 chapters here, but there's so much here that's embedded in here, and we have to unpack it. But remember that the overall theme is becoming set apart ones. So all of these are like the code, part of the qualification of the ethical, practical code. In other words, what do we do in practice? Practice making perfect. Here we have also the Sha'at-nez. Sha'at-nez. What is Sha'at-nez? Sha'at-nez or Sha'at-nez is avoiding admixtures. Admixtures in the Hebrew, kilayim. What is kilayim? Mixtures. We're to avoid the kilayim, the admixtures, and generally this is referred to as the Sha'at-nez. Sha'at-nez. Further restrictions about mixing 2 kinds of crops in the same field. So there are restrictions here in this Kedoshim, holy ones, set apart ones, and the holiness code here about mixing 2 kinds of crops in the same field. We're restricted from doing that. The landlord says, don't do that. Or allowing cattle to interbreed, right? To interbreed are also given here in this Kedoshim 30th sabbatical study. Some say perhaps as metaphors. Some take this reading in the scripture concerning the Sha'at-nez, avoiding the kilayim, the admixtures, as a metaphor, right, for purity and the separation. Another key theme of set apartness, holiness, is separation of the holy and the profane. Such forbidden admixtures are called kilayim. Klayim, if you contract it, klayim or kilayim. Even clothing was required to be pure and free from admixture of wool and linen. Now, this is very interesting because we apply this, because these principles are still principles today, right? It had nothing to do with offering of animal dead for sin or anything like that right here, right? Earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth. So even clothing was required to be pure and free from admixture of wool and linen. I like to reason with those who are into, you can say, the fabrics, designers, clothing makers. This is for the righteous clothing makers, making holy, set-apart clothing. Even clothing was required to be pure and free from klayim, of wool and linen. The mixing of wool and linen is an example in what is called Sha'at-nez. Mixing wool and linen in the Hebrew, Sha'at-nez. Sha'at-nez, Sha'at-nez, Sha'at-nez. Sha'at-nez is mixing of wool and linen together. This is an acronym. Some look at Sha'at-nez as being an acronym, right, for the Hebrew words Shua, combined, right, and what Tave, spun, right, Tawe, spun, and news is woven. So some looking at the word sha'atnes can see in this word combined, spun, and woven. Woolen blankets, sweaters, pants, women's apparel, linen suits, blouses, etc., 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 may not be composed of sha'atnes, all right, sha'atnes, but must be checked, all right, must be checked. Some nowadays would check that by a specially trained tester. But I think we need to apply, the wisdom here. The once lost, now found wisdom here. Because, some people, I'm not going to be long on this, but some have complained that some fabrics cause itchiness of skin and people get rashes, people very, very sensitive to this. And sometimes certain health problems are caused by such shotness. Sound like shotness, like somebody shatness, sha'atness. So I think this is very, very important. And there's a verse in scripture where Yahweh Eloheinu says that he will punish, he will punish all of the king's children that are wearing strange, strange apparel. I think it's in the prophet. Some of you might know it. We're not going there right now, but hopefully we'll circle around on that, tolo, soon. But let's pick up on that. Sha'atnez, mixing of wool and linen. Because when you start to look at a lot of clothing, it's rare you find anything keeping it 100. When we say keep it 100, you go out there and sometimes you notice when it is 100, notice it's something more expensive as well. All right. So this also shows on a certain level the set apartness, because only the best and the blessed for Yah people, for Yah's children. All right. Speaking of the children of Israel and the righteous from all nations, Bashem Yeshua. One more point right here on forbidden first fruits. Let's touch on the arla. Some point as arla. Some pointed as orla. The orla, arla. What is the arla or orla? Arla is the Hebrew word used to refer to forbidden fruit. Arla. Right? Modern Hebrew, a little more orla. Right? But we have dialects, you know what I mean? So people, one person from over here said arla. Right? We say orla. We know what we're talking about. This is the word used to refer to forbidden fruit from a newly planted fruit tree. Again, there is, according to the holiness code of Yahweh Eloheinu, right, the forbidden fruit of a newly planted fruit tree, the orla. The Torah, it commands that if you plant a fruit tree, you may not eat of any of its fruits for the first 3 years. I have to say this right here. There's some commands that might sound even strange. But, when it says that he will raise up a people who are no people to provoke us to zealousness, some of the other Yehudi have kind of gone into some interesting reasonments and even found some interesting science behind what just seems like, oh, that's just old-time Israelites and they didn't know any better, but they were saying Yahweh gave them this instruction, and now they get to find that a lot of these things even have back at it, like even the mixing of certain fabrics, right? Sometimes it can be fabrics, something mixed in even a small proportion, right? And people don't know why, why certain dis-ease or rashes or, why they're being so adversely affected, right, initially, so yeah, we say check the labels, but let us also, support those, who are out there seeking to do holy holy things, set apart things according to Yahweh's instruction, spirit, and truth. Here we have Leviticus 19:23. What a year. When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, then you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. Orla, Orla. 3 years it shall be Orla, Arla to you. It must not be eaten. Now, this Hebrew word Arla, pointed as Orla, is brought out in translation best as its uncircumcision. So in the Hebrew sense, understanding from the Hebrew perspective, it is speaking of forbidden. It's uncircumcised. It's uncircumcised. All right. So it's interesting, this principle here. I'm looking at the time right here, but I was doing some research and saw, wine growers, and they were like growing a new vineyard. And they didn't connect Torah with this. But I was curious that they said that when they grow the grapes, and they start out in a new place or whatever, how it started out, that they will grow it, but for the first 2 or 3 or so years, they would just grow. They wouldn't use any of that as their product. I thought it was kind of very interesting. And they said that after that, then it really begins to become, that particular type of crop. The crop really becomes good. Now, knowing this here in the Torah, I said, interesting. So those first 3 years, the Torah here commands that if you plant any, kind of a fruit tree, you plant a fruit tree, you may not eat of it in keeping with Kedusha, set apartness of any of its fruit for the first 3 years, Leviticus 19:23. And on the 4th year, all the fruit must be either brought to the Heikal, the temple, the holy place, as a korban, as an offering, a sacrifice, or sold, and the money given to the Heikal. All right. So it could either be brought forward as an offering for the priest, or it could be sold, and the money, the kesofim, given to the Heikal, the support of the priest again, right, of the kahuna. The first year's fruit of a tree is called kadosh, is set apart, is holy, and belongs exclusively to Yahuwah, Jehovah. The first thing, remember the first? It is regarded as mukseh. What is mukseh? Mukseh is separated. The sense is it's separated from us. So the first of that tree, the first year's fruit, is kadosh, and it's regarded as mukseh. Oh, can I have some of that? Oh, no, that's mukseh. You know that's separated from us, right? Because it's of the first, and the first are for Yahweh Elohim. So here, to seal up right here, we'll get into the Haftarah and the Brit Hadasha, the prophet's reading here. We pick up Amos chapter 9. We have Amos chapter 9, 11. Chapter 9, verse 7. Are ye not as the children of Ethiopia, or the male children of Israel? Right? Here we have Amos chapter 9, verse 7 to verse 15, and the Brit Hadasha, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 13 to verse 16, focus verses, and 1 Corinthians chapter 6, focus verses 9 to 20. But here, just the additional Torot, the additional directions, instructions for a Kadosh Goy, right? A Goy Kadosh, a holy people. The eating of blood is strictly forbidden. The eating of blood is strictly forbidden and is subject to being karet. Karet in the Hebrew is being cut off. Karet, being cut off. Some imply here the fuller sense is having your life cut short. Your life cut off. It's almost like when the old timers would give the youngins instruction, they would do other things. They say, if you don't listen, the same penalty applies to those who engage in the practice of so-called interpreting the omens omens, but these omens in Hebrew are called the ov. Ov in modern Hebrew or ob, obo, like basically obia, right there, ob in the Hebrew. Yes, ob, obia, Hebrew word. Or performing any form of witchcraft, yidaoni, right, yidoni, right. This is like to know, like I can say like we're gonna break that down. We're gonna get into those right there because they're often translated in a certain way, and we need to really see the fuller context. Being superstitious, the general idea is being superstitious against ha-Torah of truth, right? Being superstitious against the Torah of truth. We must revere, reverence, and show reverence in the sanctuary of He who be, who He be. And notice what the New Covenant says, know ye not, right, that our bodies are that temple, right? So it even brings, these ideas, and these concepts, even more home to us. We are to honor the elderly, right? The elderly and the scholars and the Torah scholars, considered by the sages to be a zaken, right? Zaken is like the elderly, right? On account of the wisdom they have through their study and labor in ha-Torah. So there's a very interesting kind of qualification here when we're speaking about elders, in particular to those who are also have a wisdom in Yah's way, right? So it's not just because they're just old, but the community, we know one another. You know that this one has labored, not just they're just an old person, look like a elder, but they truly are elders. So they're being honored for also their wisdom, in their study, right, their practice and their labor in John's instruction. We must show great respect for a Torah scholar. When he walks into the room, we must stand up. We must also be careful to respect, reverence our teachers, our instructors, right? Because you have to remember that the Torah is truth. So it's about truth. And we should be always willing to learn and to grow in knowledge, and truth. Various punishments defined for those who engage in child sacrifice and sexual immorality, including homosexuality, as it's in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13, are then also given. And the Parsha, here it ends with a final appeal to be Kedoshim, to be set apart ones, Lifnei Yahweh, before Jehovah Elohei Yisrael. So here, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26, where it reads, y'all shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and I have separated you from other peoples, that y'all should be mine. With hiyitem li kedoshim ki akadosh ani Yahuwah. Wa abdil etikem min ha'amim lihiyot li. There, Haftarah reading, get into some of the details right there, but just take a pause for the chorus here. We do have a psalm, just to touch on this psalm right here. Today's daily psalm, we have Psalm 2. Second psalm in the Psalter is Psalm 2. Let's go to a little bit of the dub-wise first up right here. Here on the dub, Max Romeo, Valley of Jehoshaphat. Today's daily psalm, Psalm 2. The basis of psalm.
When Jah come from Bozrah with his garment dipped in blood.
Psalm 2.
Mizmor Bet.
Why do the heathen rage?
Lama rageshu goyim.
And the people imagine a vain thing.
Uleumim yehgur.
The kings of the earth set themselves.
Yityatsevu malche ere.
and the rulers take counsel together.
ורוזנים נוסדו יחד.
Against the Lord and against his anointed.
על אדוני ועל משיחו.
Saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and he perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him.
Yes. So today's daily psalm right here, just queuing up a few things here. About to go into the last hour right here as we're podcasting. Like to share, see if we have this right here. Both to hear the raw and then also the Hebrew right here. Give me one moment, brothers and sisters and brothers. That was the English right there. Okay, just the Hebrew right here. Let me cue it up.
Red hot, don't you want it? When Jah come from Bozrah with his garment dipped in blood.
מזמור ב' למה רגשו גויים ולאומים יהגו ריק יתייצבו מלכי ארץ ורוזנים נוסדו יחד על אדוני ועל משיחו. ננתקה את מוסרותינו ונשליכה ממנו אבותינו. יושב בשמיים יצחק, אדוני ילעג למו. אז ידבר אלמו ואפו, ובחרונו יבהלמו. ואני נסחתי מלכי על ציון הר קודשי. אספרה אל חוק, אדוני אמר אלי, בני אתה, אני היום ילידתיך. שאל ממני ואתנה גויים נחלתך, ואחוזתך אפסי ארץ. תרוען בשבט ברזל, ככלי יוצר תנפצם. ועתה מלכים השכילו, היבשרו שופטי ארץ. עבדו את אדוני ביראה, וגילו ברעדה. נשקו בר פן יענף, ותובדו דרך, כי יבער כמעט אפו, אשרי כל חוסדו.
Lama Rakshu Goyim. Why do the heathen rage? Here, Tehillim, this psalm, the second psalm in the Psalter right here. Tehillim, a plot against Yahweh against Jehovah's anointed. Hear the intro
The
here
bait
today.
psalm, or Psalm I. Yes, I. Rastafari, Psalm I. The second psalm, the bait. Today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, and after the order of Melchizedek, Melchizedek, the righteous king, even the King of Kings, weep not, behold, Kadamawi, Haile Selassie. Yes, I. Today's daily psalm, a plot against Jah's anointed, the bait psalm, the second psalm in the cipher, in the Sefer Tehillim, the bait psalm, or Psalm I. Yes, I. Rastafari, Psalm I. The second psalm, the bait psalm. And it's themed the plot against Jah's anointed. A plot against Yod-Heh, Weh-Heh, Yahweh, he who he be's anointed. A plot against Jah's Christ, against Elohim's Moshiach. Now, commentators, both ancient and modern, both the ancient and the modern commentators, many of them differ. They differ in their opinions and thoughts as to whether the subject of the psalm, today's daily psalm, the second psalm, is the messianic or historical king. And if it's the latter, if it's the historical king, they ask the question, well, who was he? We'll tell you who he be. He be who he be. His Divine Majesty. Yes, I. Kadamawi Haile Selassie. Rashi's comment is this, that our rabbis expounded as relating to King Messiah. Our rabbis, the Rebbeinu, they expounded as relating to King Messiah, related to Melech HaMoshiach, related to Negus Masih, the Negus Mashiach, the King Messiah. But according to its plain meaning, it is proper to interpret it in connection, firstly, at least foremostly, for Aina of the royal order, with David, with David, in light of the statement that we find in 2 Samuel 5 and 17. 2 Samuel 5 and 17, and when the Philistines, when they heard that David was anointed king, Melech, Negus, over Israel, all the Philistines, they went up to seek David. They went up to seek David. This is what we have in 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 17. Now the succession to the throne of Yisrael, the man who sees the true good, the true God, Yasharel, it became the occasion of a political crisis, which threatened the country with war. Right? And we have also Haile Selassie's war. Right, that Davidic king. Now, the theme of the psalm is an exemplification of the proverb. What proverb do we have that today's daily psalm, the bait psalm, the second in the cipher, in the Sefer Tehillim, is an exemplification, example of the proverb that man proposes and Jah disposes. Amen. That man proposes, but Jah, the true good, the true God, disposes. So if this is part of Psalm 1, some say as a continuation of Psalm 1, right, which is a key as well, we and I may best regard it as an application of the lesson, the trials, the temptation, the testing, and then the baraka, the blessing. But first, the application of its lesson to the national sphere. You see, Psalm 1, the first psalm, first Mizmor in the cipher, in the Sefer Tehillim, it deals with the two ways of individuals, the two ways of the indivisible dual, the individuals. Psalm 2 today's daily psalm right here, the Beit Psalm, it deals with the two ways for peoples, for nations, for groups, you know, for like corporate kind of entities, groups and nations and peoples. So now, is this a messianic psalm? But it's in context from its groundation, getting to a good groundation, all right, getting a good understanding, and meditating, the meditation, the silent prayer, and the reflection to get a good understanding. And when you come to the overstanding, you'll see the way, you know, Yahweh, truth and life, and the two ways. Before every man that is set two ways, and the Hebraic, the two truths. The two truths. So the first psalm, Psalm 1, is a psalm of the two ways. The two ways. It's the introductory to the entire psalter and to the entire cipher, the Sefer Tehillim. Psalm 2, today's daily psalm, is a psalm of Ha-Melech, of Negus, even Negusa Neges, Ze, Ethiopia, even of the king. 1, the king is rejected. 2, the king is established. 3, the king reigneth over the nations, and he shall reign for ever and ever. So the second psalm gives us the order of the establishment of the kingdom, the Malkut, the Mengist of Negus and Neges. It gives us the order of the establishment of the kingdom. This psalm has 6 parts, and here we're referring to the Schofield Study Bible notes as well as the Sefer Tehillim, just to get an overview right here for the overview of the Tehillim, today's daily psalm, the introduction, to get a good groundation, a good understanding, as Psalm 47:7 says, give praise with understanding, right? The groundation. So here, today's daily psalm, Psalm 2, the second psalm in the order, the 6 parts. 1, the rage of the Gentiles, the rage of the Goyim, the rage of the nations, whether it is the League of Nations, right, in that prophecy fulfilled, the League of Nations, or in these latter days and times of the united Goyim, the united Gentiles, the united nations, there's a rage, an insane rage of the Goyim, of the nations and the nation states, the vain imagination of, quote, the people, end quote. Who are the people, end quote? Some say the people are the Jews. The rage of the Gentiles and the vain imagination of the peoples. Can we say Jah peoples? And the antagonism of rulers. The antagonism of the rulers, the rulers of the earth, the kings of the earth, so to speak, the rulers, the powers that be presently, against Yod-Heh, Wah-Heh, against Jehovah's anointed, against Yahweh's Christ, Yahweh's anointed. We have this in verses 1 to 3. Now, the inspired interpretation of this, we find it in the Brit Chadasha, in the Hadith Kidan, the Hadith Kal Kidan, in the New Covenant, in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 4, verses 25 to 28. And there, in Acts chapter 4, verses 25 to 28, it asserts its fulfillment in the crucifixion of Christos of Christ, of HaMoshiach, of the Messiah, in the first advent of the Bein Elohim Chayim, of the Son of the living God, the living good, the true God. Yes? The second part of today's daily psalm is the derision. The derision of Yahweh, of he who be who he be, in verse 4, that men should suppose or assume should assume it possible to set aside his covenant, that John's covenant is possible. Like it's not possible, but they assume that it's possible to set aside John's covenant. We have 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 8 to 17, and to set aside not only the covenant, they assume that, which is not possible, but they think it's possible to set aside the covenant, his covenant, John's covenant, and the oath. The oath. We have it in Psalm LXXXIX, in Psalm 89, verses 34 to 37. That brings us to the third part of today's daily psalm, the Beit Psalm, the second in the cipher, Psalm 2. And that is the vexation. The vexation. The vexation, verse 5, fulfilled. First, in the destruction of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, Arasalam, circa 70 AD 70. And if you have not read Chabarim, brothers and sisters and others, From Babylon to Timbuktu, by Rudolph R. Windsor, we implore, we beseech you, get a read, so you can understand the significance of I and we. The Hebrews, the so-called N-word, we the black Jews of the line of the tribe of Judah, concerning Jerusalem and concerning, in particular, 70 A.D., which in today's daily psalm at verse 5 is that vexation fulfilled. Firstly, in the destruction of Jerusalem, A.D. 70, and in the final dispersion of the Jews, the black Jews, we the black Jews in this so-called African and Western Gentile dispersion diaspora here in the Americas and throughout the Caribbean. I say Americas, North and South America. But the epicenter, of course, scripturally, biblically, is this North country. That's why all the tribes trying to get here quick, fast, immigration, over land, over sea, trying to get to this spot, this North country, because there's a lot that's going to go down. Babylon going to go down, down, down. Babylon is falling, It's falling. So we have the vexation, firstly, the destruction of Jerusalem, the temple of Jerusalem, 70 A.D., and then dispersion of the Hebrews, or the so-called latter days in time, the N-words, the Negroes, and all the other bywords. The dispersion of the Yehudi, the Jews at that time. And to be fulfilled more completely in the tribulation. These latter days and time, the latter days and times of the Gentiles, of the Goyim, of the nations. It's the end of the nation states. So you want to hold on to a nation state, even American nation state, go ahead. You can do so, but it's the tribulation. Matthew 24 and 29, which immediately precedes the return of the king. The return of the king. Now, if you come at the king, you better not miss, but they missed. So the return of Hamelech, even Negus and the guests, we have Matthew 24 and 30. The fourth of the 6 parts of today's daily psalm, just to get an overview right here. The fourth is the establishment of the rejected king. The establishment of the rejected king upon Zion. Now we have a foreshadowing of this. Do we or do we not? Don't we have that in what occurred with the King of Kings upon the African Zion, Ethiopia? Right? 5 years to the very day, the establishment of the rejected king upon Zion, verse 6. The fifth part of today's daily psalm is the subjection of the earth to the king's rule, to Hamelech's rule, even Negus and the guests' rule, in verses 7 to 9. And here's where those of the new line and that precious name, those who are truly born again, right, in and through the King of Kings Christ, and have received that new name, that precious name of Rastafari. Here's where I work, I co-labor, right? Is it that fifth point, the subjection of the earth to the king's rule in verses 7 to 9. And this brings us forward to the sixth part and that's the present appeal. The present appeal. Word, sound, power, the present appeal to the world powers and the powers that be presently, right? The powers that be, the world powers. You have this in verses 10 to 12. Now, there are other messianic psalms as well, but this right here is the first of the messianic psalms. We have the first of the messianic psalms in today's daily psalm, the Beit Psalm, the second psalm, and there's a footer that goes through some of the other messianic psalms as well, but not to even go forward and further in that right now, just to kind of receive this word and meditate on today's daily psalm according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, the Beit Psalm, a plot against Jah's anointed, against Jah's Yahweh's Messiah, a plot against Christ, even Christ in his kingly character, which brings us to this item from today's psalm, right? We gave you an overview, and there's the final verse of today's daily psalm. Nashuku bar pena ye enaf. Derek, kiss the son, lest he shall be angry, and you perish in the way. With Derek, you perish in the way. Kia yivar kimaat apo. For his wrath may soon, when his wrath is kindled but a little, may soon be kindled. Ashrei kol Jose ba'u. Ashrei, happy. Ashrei, happy. The beatitudes, the beautiful attitude, the Ashrei. Some say blessed, but it's not the Baruch bless. It's Ashrei. Happy, the beatitude happy. Ashrei, kol Jose ba'u. Kol Jose ba'u. Happy are all they that take refuge, or all who take refuge. Ba'u. Kol Jose ba'u. Jose, kol Jose ba'u. Some render that as, blessed are the ones yielding upon him. KJV translates this as, blessed are all they that put their trust in him. And here again we have a key. And in the Schofield Study Bible, they kind of zoom in on that. Happy are all they. Happy are all they. The psalm, it fulfills with the same note as that struck at the beginning of the first psalm. The first psalm in the cipher, in the Sefer Tehillim, that is Psalm 1. That this second psalm, it ends where the first one begins. From a Hebraic, a Judaic point of view, we connect these two psalms. These two psalms are connected even by virtue of that word sound, Ashrei. The first psalm begins, Ashrei Ha'ish, happiness, the happiness of the Ish. Note that it didn't say Ashrei Ha'adam. No, it says Ashrei Ha'ish, the higher man, the Ish. The phrase is frequently used in the Bible, the scriptures. It signifies either the pleasurable effect of Jah's material bounty, the material wealth, the material prosperity of he who be, who he be. Some say or, we say and the spiritual, iritical, the psycho-spiritual joy and the tranquility of heart, that shalom, that peace, which result from trustfulness in him. In the Psalms, the latter sense more than the material prosperity prevails in the Psalm, but it does not exclude the material, the physical, the psycho prosperity as some counterfeit Christian and others might have led you to believe or have sought to be lie, to be like Eve. Now, it is also said that happy is the man. Right? Happy is the man, and why the nation in the uproar, they form one song. So Psalm 1 and Psalm 2, they form one song. Some confirm this view and say that every psalm, every mizmor, every chant, every intonation which was dear to David, a man after the Lord's own heart, he opened with Ashrei, happy. And like I said, Ashrei is the beatitude, blessed, where the Moshiach, Yeshua, Hanotri, Adonenu, Roveinu, when he said the beatitude, the Hebrew is, when he says blessed, he's not saying Baruch blessed, he's saying Ashrei, that state of heart and mind, that perfect peace. So David, it is said that every psalm that was dear to David, he opened with Ashrei and he concluded with Ashrei. He opened with Ashrei, happy, as it is written, Ashrei Ha'ish, happy is the man, and he concluded with Ashrei, happy, as it is written, happy Ashrei are all they that take refuge, all they that take refuge in him. Ashrei kol hosei ba'u. And so here we zoom in on the Schofield note connected with trust. Blessed are all they that take refuge, right, from the more Hebraic, but we have the sense of trust in the KJV. Trust is the characteristic Old Testament word for the New Testament words and ideas of faith and belief and believe. It occurs 152 times in the Old Testament, and it's the rendering of the Hebrew words signifying to take refuge. So the rendering of the Hebrew words, as we have kol Jose, bo, call all, kol Jose, all that trust, all that take refuge, ba'u, not bow, but ba'u, it's a wow, woo, in him. All those that take refuge in him. So we have this in Ruth 2 and 12, to take refuge in Psalm 56 and 3 to lean on, in Psalm 22 and 8 to roll on, to roll on, in Job 35 and 14 to stay upon. So Ashrei kol hosei ba'u.
Yes. Here. I'd like to touch on all the sections here. There's a few sections right here, but first here, this right here. Here's the chanting. It's today's daily psalm right here. One of the best blessed chantings of it right here. Psalm 2. Hear this.
لما رغشوا غيم والأميم يهجريك يتصفوا مالخيرس وروزني منوسد وياحد على أدوناي وعلى مشيحو ننتقائت مصيرتيمو ونشليخا منه عبوتيمو יושב בשמיים ישחק אדוני אל עגלמו אז ידבר אלימו באפו ובחרונו יבהלמו ואני נסחתי מלכי על ציון הר קודשי אספרה אל חוק אדוני אמר אלי בני אתה אני היום ילידתיך שאל ממני ותן הגויים נחלתך
ואחוזתך הסיירס תרועים בשבט ברזל ככלי יוצר תנפסים ועתה מלכים השכילו יואסרו שופט הארץ עבדו את אדוני ביראה וגילו ברעדה נשקו בערפן ינף ותאבדו דרך כי יבער כמעט אפו אשרי כל חוסבו.
So here, today's daily psalm. Here we have the bait, slow, stretched out, bait, normal speed, the bait psalm, the second psalm, Psalm I. Here, plot against Yahweh, Jehovah's anointed. So here, first three verses, king's plan and attack. Verses 4 to 6, Elohim, Yahweh Eloheinu derides their plot. Verses 7 to 9, Hamelech, the king speaks. In verses 10 to 12, the exhortation, the build to the schemers. All right, to exhortation, to the schemers, like a kind of a one and one. But right here, first three verses, today's daily psalm, according to the royal order. Verse 1, the Aleph. Second verse, the Beit. Third verse, the Gimel verse. The Aleph verse. Lama ragshu goyim ul umim yehgu rik. Here, the Beit, the second verse. Yitayatbu amalkei eretz we roznim nosedu yahad al Yahweh wa al Meshicho. Here, the Gimel, the third verse. Ninatika eta mosarotemo aware nashalicha nimenu avotemo. So here. Let's first deal the first verse here. This section is the kings plan and attack. The kings of the earth plan and attack. Beginning with Lama Ragshu Goyim U Leumim Ulumim Yehigu Rik. KJV has, why do the heathen rage? Lama, la, for ma, what? Lama, for what or why? Lama, ragashu, goyim. Ragashu, raging, the goyim, the nations, the nationalities, like the League of Nations, the United Nations now. Lama, ragshu, goyim. Ul umim, yehigu, rik. And the peoples. In the English it says, and the people, singular, but the Hebrew, umim, the peoples. U and le umim, and of the peoples, yehigu from Haga, like to meditate or murmur, to ponder, to meditate. Here brought out like to imagine. Yehigu, rik. Rik is a vain thing, emptiness is rik. Vanity, rik, empty, idle, vain, rik. It's like when the Moshe Yeshua Robenu says, don't call your brother Raka, from the same root, Raka, the root right there, and the rik, the sense of emptiness or worthless thing, like in vain to no purpose. So here, first part of the verse, Lama, la for ma. Lama, Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, and Hebrew for why. Lama, literally for what? Lama ragshu goyim. The question does not seek the reason or a ratzon d'etre, right? A reason for being or a reason, like an explanation or even apology, explaining. No, the question does not seek the reason for the planned revolt, but expresses astonishment at its planning because it is futile. Lama ragshu goyim. It's like what they say, a rhetorical question. For men to set themselves against Yahuwah Eloheinu, Aina Elohim's decree, is as hopeless, quote, as if the stars were to combine to abolish gravitation. Now, putting gravitation in the true sense of gravitas, which before was brought, down to like Newton's terms of science, so to speak, it referred to God. God was the gravity, the gravitas, the seriousness, the gravity, gravitas. So it's like if the stars were to get together to abolish like that honor of Yahuwah Eloheinu, like to come against him who created them. This is how vain their endeavor. Lama, for what? Ragshu, raging, Ragshu, goyim, the peoples. Here, bringing out from the Hebrew sense, this can be brought out as, why are the nations in the uproar? So KJV is, why do the heathen, the goyim, are nations, right? Why are the nations in an uproar? KJV, rage, ragshu from ragash. Ragash is to be in a tumult, a commotion. But ragash in ragshu goyim can also mean to conspire, to plot, to be tumultuous, like in an uproar. This is the same verb that's used in Psalm 55, roundabout verse 15, where it says, in the house of Elohim we walked, we tried it with the throng, like the crowd, right? The ragash, the ragash sense. It conveys the idea of a noisy assembly. And here, for like the rhema, the revelation, the league of nations, the league of goyim, the united nations, the united goyim, the united heathen, the united Gentiles. Mutter in vain. Ula umim, yehigu, to mutter, right, to imagine, right, reek, to imagine a vain thing. Now, this word yehigu comes from haga. Haga means to moan, to growl, to utter, to muse, to mutter, to meditate, to devise. It's almost like if somebody is meditating, they're pondering, they're like talking, almost like somebody talking to, like, you see somebody talking to themselves and you say like, that person's crazy, or even you can meditate to yourself. But this is the sense here, right? That they mutter in vain, they meditate, they're meditating, bring out the better sense of it. They meditate a vain thing. The plan they had gathered to consider vis-a-vis the overthrow of the newly crowned king. So we have in the real world, 1936, the fascist invasion, Mussolini, the Pope, Vatican, that second beast right there. The plan they have gathered to consider, even at the League of Nations, using that as a right now example in this dispensation of time, the overthrow of the newly crowned king. In its first context, as we mentioned, applied to Dawid, even in 2 Samuel. Shemuel, 2 Samuel 5:17. And when the Philistines heard that Dawid was anointed, was the Messiah Melech, was anointed king over Yisrael, all the Philistines went up to seek Dawid. So as we mentioned, the succession to the throne of Israel became the occasion of a political crisis that threatened the country with war. Same thing we have in this time span, this time period with the greater David, the greater son, Kadamawi Haile Selassie, that led to what? World War II, and that word of prophecy that no one foresaw when he said the match struck in Ethiopia, the flames would burn Europe. They laughed. They made a lot of noise, right? Even other delegates that say, silence these beasts. Let the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, Kadamawi Haile Selassie, speak. So here, this brings us here. It was an empty scheme. It was an empty scheme in the time of David, the time of the King of Kings, and I, the children. It's an empty scheme. Verse 1, Lama ragshu goyim, ulumim yehigu rik. Here. Second verse, the bait verse here. Yitayatzbu malkei eret, with roznim no sudu yahad. All Yahuwah, we're all Mishiho. Here, KJV, the kings of the earth set themselves. The kings of the earth set themselves, setting themselves, Yitayatzabu, Yitzyatzbu, they setting themselves Yityatzbu. Malkei, the kings of Eretz, Malkei Eretz, the kings of the Eretz, the kings of the land, the kings of the earth. And the rulers take counsel together with Rosnim no Sudu, Yachad. Counsel together, no Sudu, Yachad, as one, united. The Rosnim, the rulers, take counsel together against Yahuwah, or upon all Yahuwah, upon, like above, like all, like above, like they're trying to come. Can you imagine that? Trying to come at the Most High. They're below, but trying to go above him. All Yahuwah with all Mishicho. So when we say Mashiach, in the sense of his Messiah, right? Mishicho, his Moshiach, Mishicho. Here, or his anointed one. So the kings of the earth are the Malkei Eretz, the kings of the earth, Eretz, it means earth or land. In some places say over all the earth, but the context is throughout all the entirety of the land. Eretz means earth in the sense of the land. Here, the reference is to the kings of the surrounding nations. And the phrase stands in opposition to Malki, my king, that we have in verse 6. All Yahuwah, upon, above, against Yahuwah, Jehovah. An attack upon Yisrael's king, Israel's Melech, Israel's Negus, even Negus Neges, would be a revolt against Yahuwah Eloheinu, who had willed his kingship. So in truth, we speak of the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, Haile Selassie I, as Siyume Exaria, the elect of Exaria, the king who had been willed by Exaria, by Yahweh, by Elohim. So an attack upon Israel's king would be a revolt or attack against Elohim, the Elohim, Ha-Elohim, Ha-Elohim, who had willed his kingship. That's why it says, all Yahuwah against Yahuwah, all Yahuwah, we're all against, above Mishicho, his anointed, his Messiah. The ceremony of livication, of dedication to a divinely ordained office, including the pouring of oil upon the Rosh in Hebrew, the Ras in Amharic, the head. Again, what makes a Mashiach and what makes this one Mishicho, his anointed? Because the ceremony of dedication, livication to a divinely ordained office amongst Yisrael, right, whether it was priest, prophet, and king, right, included the pouring of oil upon the Rosh, upon the head. It was done at the consecration, for example, of a Kohen, or we say Aaron, the first anointed, according to Hebrew text, and his sons, the first anointed ones, or the first Christ in the Hebrew Old Testament sense, Aaron and his sons, the first Christian, or the first anointed ones in the camp. But connected with the anointing ceremony. This was done at the consecration of a Kohen, a priest. Where do we know this? Scripture and verse, Exodus chapter 28 and 41. What about a king? When a king was anointed, we have it in 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 1. And occasionally, when a Nabi, a prophet, we have this 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 16. So here we have priests, right, king and prophet, all being anointed, and all, according to scripture, being Mashiach, Moshiach, anointed one, or we could say in a new covenant sense, Christ, to say anointed, right? David called Shaul. David called Saul Yahuwah's anointed, the anointed Yahuwah's Moshiach. In 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 7, even though David himself, when he called Shaul the Lord's anointed, he also was Yahuwah's Moshiach. So it's kind of interesting right here because they both are anointed
right? Within a new covenant understanding of the Greek, they both are Christ, according to the office and principle. But we get one who is Christ fighting against the other, as was the fascist invasion, the Antichrist against Christ. But even David referred to Saul as the Lord's anointed in 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 7. Now, although the text could be translated as his Messiah, and this text can also be translated as his Christ, literally is his anointed, Mashiach, it may apply as well to an ordinary king of Yisrael, an ordinary king of Yisrael. But the context here in the Psalm of David to David in the sense of revelation, right? And the type, greater David, greater son, weep not, behold, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, root of David, weep not, behold, Kadamah Haile Selassie, Negusa Neges Ethiopia, Siyume Xiavia. Here to the Gimel verse, but once again, the full of the bait verse, Yitayatzabu Malkei Eretz, we Rosnim no Sudua Yahad, al Yahuwah wa al Meshicho. Here, the Gimel verse right here. Ne natika eta mosarotemo we nashlecha mimeno avotemo. Let us break their bands asunder and cast their cords from us. Let us break their bands. Let us break their bands asunder. Ne natika eta mosarotemo, and cast away with nashlecha, let us cast away nashlecha, cast away mimenu from us, avotemo, their cords. Interesting, the league of the Goyim, the league of nations, the league of Gentiles. Let us break their bands asunder. The prowess of David, had been experienced by the Philistines. And the Philistines, they feared that under his kingship, under David's kingship, they would become vassals of Yisrael. This was also the fear of Rome, Italy, and the fascists at that particular time as well. It were therefore better to make an onslaught when he had recently ascended the throne and not wait until he had grown more formidable by reorganizing and strengthening his forces. All right, so just a kind of an overview there, but we can also see more of that prophetic word in the greater David, the greater son, the Moshiach ben David, even in Kadamawi Haile Selassie. But this brings us right here, just to try to get to a particular verse right here for the time that we have right here. The second section, that's the first section right there, King's plan and attack. Why are the nations, the United Nations, the League of Nations in an uproar, and why do the peoples mutter in vain, meditate, a vain thing? Bring us here to verses 4 to 6. Elohim, Yahweh Eloheinu, he derides the plot. Here, verse 4, the Dalet verse, Yosheb Bashamayim Yishak, Yahuwah Yil'ag Lamo. Yosheb Bashamayim Yishak, Yahuwah Yil'ag Lamo. KJV, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. Yosheb Bashamayim Yishak shall laugh. Yosheb Bashamayim Yishak, he that sitteth in the heavens, he that's enthroneth. Yosheb Ba in on the Shamayim, Bashamayim in Hashamayim, Be Hashamayim, Bashamayim in the heavens. Yishak, the Lord, right? The Lord shall have them in derision. I think I read it here. We have a couple of Hebrew. The older Hebrew says, Adonai, Yil'agalamo. Yoshe Bashamayim Yitzhak. Adonai Yil'ag Lamo. Adonai, the Lord, the sovereign, the boss, Adonai, shall have them in derision. Yil'ag Lamo. Derision, la'ag in Hebrew, in Yil'ag, means like to mock, to deride, to ridicule, to deride by implication, to deride, to mock, to ridicule. Right? It's almost like speaking a foreign language in a sense. You know, like somebody saying something in a foreign language to mock, it has that sense. But Adonai, Yilag, Lamo, them. So here in verse 4, as in the book of Job, the reader is transported to the heavenly heights, Bashamayim, to witness the workings out of Yahuwah Eloheinu, of Adonai, the Lord's designs, Adonai's designs. He that sitteth in heaven. Better, in the Hebrews, he who is enthroned in the heavens is Ba Shamayim. The Beit, Be, and Ha-Shamayim, put in the two words together, Be Ha-Shamayim, in Hebrew, Ba Shamayim. Yoshe Ba Shamayim Yitzhak. He that sitteth in the heavens, he was enthroned in the heavens. Here in the notes, it says, as in Psalm 123 and 1. You know, they say right here, the King of Kings, he that sitteth in the heavens, he who is enthroned in the heavens is the King of Kings, Negus Neges, Yah bless, shall do what? Shall laugh, Yitzhak, like Isaac, Yitzhak, shall laugh. This is a bold anthropomorphism. You know, Yahweh Elohim is spirit, but this is a bold, like, man form, Yahweh in a man form, a bold anthropomorphism that makes the scene most vivid, as we have in Psalm 37, verse 13, Psalm 59, round about the 9th verse. Let's go to the 5th verse here, the Hay verse. Az Yidaber Eleimo Be'apo Bacherono Ye Bahilemo. He shall speak, then he shall speak. Then Az means then. Az Yidaber. Then Yidaber. He shall speak. Eleimo. To them, Be'apo, in his wrath. Ubacherono, and vex them, right? In his sore displeasure, Ubacherono, and in his sore displeasure, Yebahilemo, he will vex them, he will trouble them. So the Az in Hebrew can mean then, right? The then, Az, at the moment when he decides to intervene and frustrate the plot, when Yahuwah decides to interposition himself, like a fight going on, and then somebody steps between, right? But to interposition himself, Az, then Yidabir. It's interesting at the League of Nations, the King of Kings, right? The elect of God is speaking, and all the heathen are making noise in the uproar. And then at a certain point, the King of Kings begins to speak. Az Yidaber Leimo. Speak to them. And in his wrath, right? In his wrath and in his sore displeasure, Bacherono, he shall vex them. He shall trouble them. Let's touch on the next verse right here. Verse 6 right here. Here we're at the Vav, the Wow verse. Wa'ani nasaktiya malkiya ala Sion harak adishi. Yet have I set my king. Wa'ani nasakti malki. Setting nasakti malki, my king.
Al Sion, up on Zion. Al Sion, Har, Mount Kadshi, Har Kadshi, Mount of my set apartness, Mount of my holiness. Wani Nasakti Malki Al Sion Har Kadshi. Here. Truly it is I, yet have I set my king. The Hebrew has a sense of truly it is I. Wa'ani, I, Wa'ani. It's interesting because the King of Kings often, right, representing that divine we, there he speaks in the I sense. Wa'ani, Nasakti Malki. I, the pronoun is stressed in the Hebrew. So here, it's not just I as part of the verb, but it's I, the pronoun, ani, wa and ani, wa'ani, yet I, truly it is I, to mark a contrast. I, ani, I have willed the king to reign, ani, wa'ani. So how dare you conspire to overthrow him, because wa'ani nasakti malki, al Sion, Zion, the seat of David, the monarchical Davidic monarchy, right? And the Ark of the Covenant. That's why the Ark is significant when we understand the fullness of prophecy, positioning, and also the Davidic government on earth. All Sion Har Kadshi. My king, Malki, a king chosen by me, a king who is Siyume Exiavia, who is elect of Yahweh Eloheinu. Sion, Zion, often regarded as a poetical name for Jerusalem, but Zion in the true Hebrew biblical context is the, how should we bring this out? Zion is the seat of the Davidic government, right? That captures into it both, we could say, church and state aspects. So when David brought Zion, the ark, and then when David had a son named Solomon, Solomon had a son named David, that renewed the kingdom, right, of David, where David got a kingdom in the tops of the mountain, Ethiopia. With Ethiopia, this man was born there. Psalm 87, verse 4. So here, a political name for Jerusalem, for which my holy mountain is another epitaph. We have in Psalm 48, round about verse 2, the city of Eloheinu, Ainai Elohim, his holy, his set apart mountain, Har Kadisho. So here, just keeping it pushing, keeping it moving, the Zain verse. So we have verses 7 to 9. The Melech, how Melech speaks. The king speaks. All right, the king speaks here. Verse 7, bring up verse 7. Asapra ilahok Yahweh amar Eli. Beni ata ani hayom yelidatika. Here the KJV, I will declare the decree. Yahweh, Jehovah, hath said to me, thou, my son, this day have I begotten thee. Here, I will tell of the decree. Asapra, let me announce. Asapra, Asapra il-hok. There's an interesting sense right here in the Hebrew. I will announce the decree, or for a hok, the decree, the hok, the statute, the decree. Yahweh, Jehovah, has said to me. Yahweh Amar Eli has said to I. Yahweh Amar Eli. What did he say? My son, you are. Thou, my son. The Hebrew Beni, my son Ata. Beni Ata. Beni, my son Ata. My son the I. Ani, I. Hayom, today, this day. Ani Hayom Yelidatika. I have begotten. I have given birth to thee. I will tell of the decree. I will announce of the decree. The king claims that he is no usurper to the crown, nor has he assumed the kingship
to gratify his personal ambition. He holds his office by divine decree. Siyume Exyavi, the elect of Exyavi here. Thou art my son. Biniata, Biniata, Bini, my son, the I. My son, you. My son, the I. Also refer here to Psalm 80, 89, around about the 28th verse, where Elohim declares to David, Psalm 89, round about verse 28, I said 12, 28, 89, round about verse 28, 28, 27, 28, where Elohim, Yahweh Eloheinu, he declares of David, I will also appoint him firstborn, Elyon, 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 the highest, the most high of the kings of the earth, the most high of the kings of the earth. Let's just bring out this verse here. It's interesting. Sometimes things be on the Medi, and then we come through to a Torah reading or song and say, Chan, there it is, there it is. Here. This is the 28th verse. Let me look at Psalm 89. Does it have a superscription? No, it will. Well, yeah, it does have a superscription. So it'll be 27 in your Bibles. But here, 28 in the Hebrew. I also will appoint him firstborn. Af, ani, bekor, etanehu. Af, for sure, af, for sure, no doubt about it. Af, ani, for sure I will do this, for sure I. Af, ani, bekor, firstborn, the bekor, like the bekorim, first fruits, bekor, etanehu, eten, I will give him. Literally it says, for sure I, firstborn, will give him. Af aniya bekor etanehu, I will give him, I will appoint him as bekor, firstborn. Elyon. So the king of Israel is Elyon of the kings of the earth, is most high. So you know who is most high? Well, the most high is most high, Yahweh Eloheinu, El Elyon. Yisrael in covenant, right, is Elyon, is higher than all the other nations. So Israel is most high, right, compared to the other nations. And here, our king is most high, Elyon, like in El Elyon. Here we have Elyon, Limalkei Aretz, Limalkei of the kings of the Aretz, the kings of the earth. Af ani bekor etanehu, Elyon, Limalkei Aretz. So just to zoom in right there. So here in today's daily psalm at the 7th verse, where he says, Bini ata, Bini, my son, Bini, my son, ata, the I is my son. This day, Hayom, ani, Hayom, yelidetika. This day have I begotten thee. This is, some say, this is perhaps a figurative, to be understood in a figurative sense. Remember, this is Psalm 2, connected with Dawid, right, in the Revelation. Right now, we see his divine majesty. But some understand this here as figurative, metaphoric language. On the day of his enthronement upon the throne of David, about the throne of Yisrael, the king was begotten of Elohim. So the Hebrew idea is that when our anointed king sits upon that throne, he, in that sense, becomes begotten, born of Yahweh Eloheinu as his servant to guide the destinies of his people. What is meant by Ani, Hayom, I, this day, Yelidetika, have begotten thee. The king was begotten on the day of his enthronement of Elohim, Siyume Exyaria, as his servant to guide the destinies of Amo, his people, even Amo Yisrael, the people of Israel. When the throne was promised to Shlomo, Solomon, Elohim gave the assurance in 2 Shemuel, 2 Samuel, chapter 7, verse 14. I will be to him for a father, and he shall be to me for a ben, for a son. Here, and keep it pushing. We'll seek to fulfill this a little bit over right here, but just get the full, right?
full of today's daily psalm. Here, the Chet verse, the Chet, the 8th verse right here. Sha'al mimeni, we'etna goyim anachelateka wa achuzateka afse aretz. Ask of me. Sha'al, make an ask of me. Sha'al, ask, mimeni. Sha'al mimeni, ask of me. Sha'al, ask, mimeni, from me. Sha'al mimeni, we'etna, and I will give goyim, the nations, nachelateka, the eye inheritance. I will give the nations as the eye's inheritance. All you need to do is to ask. Sha'al mimeni, we'etna goyim nachelateka. Give the heathen, the nations, for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Wa achuzateka, the eye possession, what you achaz, what you're able to seize and hold, right? Wa achuzateka, wa achuzateka, thy possession. Afse, the ends or the uttermost part. Ephes in Hebrew, Ephes or Ephes means ceasing, an end, a finality. And so when we say here, the Afse Aretz, the ends of the earth, the furthest regions of the earth. Right here, verse 8, Sha'al mimeni, ask of me. Sha'al mimeni. The language of the verse, some say, is poetical hyperbole. We say it's reality. It's Sha'al mimeni. But it does have a poetical, hyperbological, parabological sense. So close is the relationship between Yahweh Eloheinu, Aina Elohim, and Mashiach, and his anointed, even the anointed king, the King of Kings, that any request would be granted, even dominion over the whole land, the whole earth. Not that any such ambitious thought is in the Melech's mind, in the Negus, even Negus and Negesh's mind, but it indicates the hopelessness of any attempt to dethrone him. Here to the 8th verse. The 8th verse. 8 is the 9th verse right here. The 8th verse. We have Tiroaim be-shevet barzel, kikliya yotzer tinapseim. Here, the KJV brings this out as, thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Thou shalt break them. Now, it's an interesting sense here, the break. Also, there's some say the shepherd sense of the break, right? Can also mean you shall rule them. You shall rule them. You shall rule them. Tiroaim. It's interesting, this word, tiroaim. All right, we have the shepherd sense right here. Tiroaim be-shevet. You shall rule them with an iron scepter. Many translations have, you shall break them with a rod of iron. Not to get into this nuance here, but it's a very interesting nuance. Those who read the Hebrew can basically see the Hebrew nuance of an alternative read. Thou shalt rule them with an iron scepter. So ruling them, to shepherd them, be-shevet barzel. Shebet is a rod, a staff, a branch, an offshoot, a club. Scepter, right? Scepter is also a tribe. Shebet. Literally, it's a rod, a staff, a branch, but in Hebrew, it's also used like for a tribe, right? Like the ruler of the tribe carry that scepter. right? So the sense of tero'aim, to shepherd them, bishevet, with a rod, barzel. Barzel is iron. Barzel is iron in the Hebrew. You shall dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. What's interesting here is we have Revelation chapter 2, verse 27, the Chazon Yochanan, and Revelation chapter 2, verse 27. What do we have right here? Here it says, and he shall rule them. The same sense. He shall rule them with a rod of iron. Right? The shevet b'shevet barzel. Right? As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of Abi, my father, father. So that connection right here with that idea, even in the Revelation, the Chazon, Yochanan, right there. But once again, the 9th verse right here, just go over it again. Tiro'aim b'sheveta barzela kikali yotzer. Kikali, a vessel, yotzer, that is like fashion, that is form, right? A potter's vessel. Kikali yotzer tinapseim. The sense of nafat, to shatter, to break, to dash, to beat in pieces, right? The sense of to scatter, the scattering, right there, scattering their tower of Babel. So if the plotters venture to proceed with their schemes, their fate would be utter destruction. Gormawi Negus and Neges, the King Messiah won, and they was heading to World War II. They was heading to utter destruction, like the shattering of an earthenware vessel. Kikali Yotzer Tenapsein. The Kikali Yotzer, the fashion, the form vessel. So here, the rod of iron, we spoke on that, the symbol of stern punishment. Right? So there's a dual sense. He's willing to shepherd them, but with that same rod, he's going to break them and dash them to pieces. The shevet barzel, the potter's vessel, the kikli yotzer. The kikli yotzer, potter's vessel, because the yotzer can also be the potter or the former, the one who forms, the potter. Kikli, a vessel of the potter, potter's vessel, is easily broken. And when a potter's vessel, like pottery, is broken, is then beyond repair. We have this idea in Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 11. But here, today's daily psalm, to just do a full here and get through a targum, a verse by verse basic build on today's daily psalm. We have the last section, verses 10 to 12, the exhortation to the schemers. Now, exhortation usually is like a build-up. I'm saying, why would you build up the schemers? Because Yah is gracious, right? The exhortation to the schemers. So here we have verse 10, verse 11, verse 12. We have the Yod verse, the Yod Aleph, and the Yod Beit verse right here. Here to the Yod verse, the 10th verse. Wa'ata milakim hasakilu. He was Sarua Shoftei Aretz. Be wise. Now, the sense in the Hebrew is and ata, and now wa'ata, and now milachim, and now kings, and now, right now, wa'ata, milachim, haskilu, be sakal, be circumspect, be prudent, have some maskil, right? Be prudent, wisely understand this, and hopefully you will prosper. Be circumspect, right? Be intelligent. Consider this. Haskilu. Be instructed. He wastu. Be instructed from the Hebrew yasar. Yasar is actually to discipline, to chasten, but it basically means in a sense to instruct. So The word discipline and to chasten from the yasar root, right, is one and the same. So how can in one area you could say where the discipline of the Lord, right, the chastisement of the Lord? Because first it's instruction, but this instruction can lead to a more serious instruction example. But here he's saying to these earthly judges, Shoftei Aretz. Shoftei, the judges of Aretz, the judges of the earth, Hiwastu. Hiwastu, Shoftei Aretz. Be instructed, ye grudges, ye judges of the earth. Be admonished. Right? Now, therefore, O ye kings. Two ways is before them. Two ways confront them. So what's coming out in today's daily song, that plot against Yahweh, Jehovah's Messiah, Jehovah's anointed, right? Wa'ata, and now Melakim, Haskilu, be wise. He was to do, be instructed, Shoftei Aretz. Two ways confront them. Before every man, there's two ways. One is to rebel against Yahweh's decree, his hawk, go against his hawk, right? That will bring upon them severe retribution. Today, the match is struck in Ethiopia, but the flames will burn Europe. He was telling them what kind of judgment was coming, right? Yeah, you know, garments rolled in blood, but this time, fuel of fire and burning, that was what would be coming. They laughed, they mocked it, they scorned, but they had these two ways before them. One is to rebel against Elohim's decree that will bring upon them severe retribution. The other is to submit to his will with happiness. This is the thing. Not like force, well, I guess we got to submit. No. In that case, just go ahead and rebel, receive the retribution. That would be better. But if you submit to his will, do it with happiness, right, as his sequel. They are exhorted. The exhortation here, the build-up to the schemas here is for them to adopt the second alternative before every man, before the judges of the earth, is two ways. The shoftim, as they're called collectively, but here in the constructive sense of the Hebrew, shoftei aretz, the judges of shoftei aretz, of the earth, the rulers whose function was to administer justice. All right, so we can look at the historical Dawid time, and also let's see the greater David, greater son time, because everything fits. You know, it just fits. The thing that we're learning, even going through this, that brings happiness. Ashrei. But here, let's go to the Yod Aleph, the 11th verse, today's daily psalm. Ivdu et Yahuwah be yirah we gilu be re'ada. Serve Yahweh, Jehovah, Ibdu, serve, become an Ebed, servant, Ibdu, et Yahweh, serve Jehovah, be Yerah, be Yerah, with reverence. Here it says with fear, the same word, Yareh, with fear, with reverence, serve Jehovah in, here it says, be in by way of Yerah, reverence. With Gilu, and rejoice with Gilu, like Nagila, we will rejoice, Nagila. Here, Gil is to rejoice, to exalt, to be glad, but Gil is, let's be giddy, in a sense, like to spin around under the influence of like strong emotion, right? It can also mean to rejoice. In some cases, the Gil, it can also mean cringing fear. It's an interesting concept, but the root sense of Gil and Gul is like to spin, and kind of like to spin around under the influence of any strong or even a violent emotion, a strong emotion, usually in a sense of ecstatic rejoicing. right? But it can also apply, as it does apply in the scripture example of cringing fear, right? But in this sense, we're gilu, right? We're gilu and rejoice, be re'ada, be re'ada, be re'ada, be re'ada, berada, right? Berada, in trembling, ra'ad. We have ra'ad. What is ra'ad? Ra'ad in Hebrew, in be re'ada, is like to shudder, fear, trembling, ra'ad, to tremble, to quake, right? To quake, to shudder, right? More or less violently, right? But it says, serve Yahweh with reverence and rejoice with trembling. It's like in that verse in the Brit Chadash, to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. You remember that? Work out our salvation with fear and trembling. This is the context right here. Right? Ivdu et Yahweh be yirah wegilu be ra'ada. Yeah, we're going to get into that, connect that, do some study on that, where it says in the new covenant that we have to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. Now going through today's daily Psalm, Psalm 2, at this 11th verse, and understanding the context of the chant, like chant, because Paul a lot of times would do that. And remember, Paul was going amongst the Gentiles, as this psalm is directed to the two ways before the nations, the Gentiles, as Psalm 1 is speaking of the two ways for individuals. Psalm 1, two ways for individuals. Psalm 2, the two ways for the Goyim, the nation states, the Gentiles. So when Paul, going forward, Rabbi Shaul, he said to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. This psalm, this verse here, it resonates that. I'll share, y'all willing, a little bit more on that. Just a revelation here as we seal up today's daily psalm. Ibdu et Yahuwah be yirah, wegilu be ra'ada. Here. Serve Yahuwah with fear. Humbly yield to his decree, respecting the kingship, fearing the consequences of his anger. Therefore rejoice with trembling. Wegilu be ra'ada. Wegilu be ra'ada. Birada. Instead of seeking my downfall, so to say, rejoice in his choice of a king. Standing in awe of his infinite majesty. Here, bringing us to the fulfillment here, the Yod Beit, the 10 and 2, the 12th verse right here. Nashku abar pen yenaf, with tobdua dareka, kia yibara, ki meata apo. Ashrei kol Jose Bo. Here KJV says, kiss the sun. Nashku bar. Here. Usually Ben in Hebrew, right? Usually Ben in Hebrew is sun. Aramaic usually use the term bar. Bar is the sun, but it's the sun in the sense of the ear. You know, so we have like Ben for sun, but we also have bar. Bar usually is more used Aramaically, but even in the Hebrew sense, bar is sun in the sense of an ear, like an ear apparent to the throne. The sense of bar correctly is like the ear apparent to the throne, right? Hebraically speaking. So here, kiss the sun, kiss the ear apparent to the throne. Right? It says nashku. Nashku is an interesting word. Neshek in Hebrew is like a weapon, right? Because of how it like comes together, like almost the lips, so to speak. But here, put together, the sense of put together. The context here is to kiss. Nashak in the Hebrew means to touch gently, Nashak, the secondary sense of nashak in nashku, here in the 12th verse of Psalm 2, can mean to handle, equipped with. So like I said in modern Hebrew, the neshek is like a weapon, neshek, right? Like to be armed, to be strapped, to handle, right? In a sense, to kiss and touch, if you can oversit. But in a plain sense, it has two senses, right? So in the first sense right here, kiss the sun, nashak. Nashak also means to fasten up, Almost like when one's kiss, in a sense, like lips kiss, they fasten. But then it has a weapon sense. But in this sense here, is kiss, whether literally or figuratively, to touch, right, as a mode of attachment. Also in the Hebrew, it's used nashak and nashku, right, is equipped with weapons or to arm men. Now, this psalm is very prophetic here. I was already saying it, but now I found even more evidence, both in understanding of the Hebrew to the Rahak Adosh, the Holy Spirit, and with you all right here, that nashku bar, we've been often translated as kiss the sun, but putting in the context of the greater David, the greater son, the Godamawik and Mahala Selassie, and those nations, the League of Nations that had come against, we could say the ear, it was to arm the sun, arm the ear. Remember that it was a weapons embargo. Italy had weapons. Ethiopia didn't have weapons. They were still coming out of a biblical hidden empire time, Revelation time. You know what I mean? It was coming out of that Psalm 87 verse 4 time, right? They didn't have the weapon. So the sense of kiss the sun is somewhat cryptic, right? A lot of people have a lot of ideas of that. But now I'm seeing that the second of the two truths is to arm the sun, equip the sun, since that was one of the main, when His Majesty said, y'all haven't kept your word, your covenant, and yet you are conspiring, against the elect of God and against His people. Are ye not as the children of Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? So kiss the sun, nashku bar, arm the sun, equip the sun, nashku bar, pen, enough, pen, unless enough, lest he be anaf, angry, displeased. Anaf is interesting because af, up, and af in Hebrew is the nose, the nostrils, right? Anaf, it also means wrath as well in some places, because when you get angry, one's breathe hard. Everyone, when you feel your emotions, you get angry or whatnot, or emotions are going through some change, check your breath and just take deep breaths, and you'll be able to regulate it like the waters, like the spirit upon the waters. But anaf here is to be angry, right? Af is the nostril. Anaf is to be angry, to be displeased, But actually, anaf in the Hebrew sense is to breathe hard, And it's interesting because this word often is used in connection of Elohim, of when Elohim gets angry. But literally, anaf is to breathe hard. That is to be enraged, but often it's translated as being angry. So this ancient connection of breath and breathing. Like I said, whenever one feels themselves getting angry, check your breath. Right? That's why when some people get worked up in motion, they faint because their breath changes. They don't notice that, right? And they don't get no air. So the breath, lest he be angry. Nashku bar pena enough. With tobdu derek. With and tobdu. And you perish, you abad, you perish, you vanish, you go astray, you be destroyed, abad, or we get abadon, like in Revelation, right? So we have tobed, right? To perish or lose your way. In other words, they're saying like, lest y'all gonna lose your way. As the League of Nations lost its way, United Nations losing its way. With tobdu derek. Because they're not walking in the way, truth, and life of the King of Kings Christ. Ki for yiv'ar, right? Lest you perish from the way when for his wrath, yiv'ar is kindle, is ba'ar, is kindle, yiv'ar is kindle. Ki ma'at is but a little, like a little. Ki is like to say like, ki, ka, And ma'at is like littleness, fewness. Even when his wrath is kindled just a little, right? Then here, the closing, where it says, ki yiva'ara, ki ma'at apo, ki ma'at, like a little apo. Remember I said about anaf is to breathe hard, right? His wrath, right? Apo, afo, apo, af is nostrils, nose, face, but it also is translated as anger, the nose and the nostril, right? It relates to anger in a person because when a person, through rapid breathing and passion, they often get angry, right? So this kind of interesting psychological Hebrew connection. Closing phraseology here, Ashrei, blessed, beatitude. Same word Yeshua when he said blessed or beatitude, right? The beatitudes, blessed, the happiness, literally in the Hebrew, Ashrei, happiness. Call Jose Bo. Call all Jose, right? All the trusters of Jose come from Chassa. Chassa in the Hebrew means to seek refuge, to flee somewhere for protection. In another sense is to put one's trust, Chassa, in Elohim, to confide or hope in Yahuwah Elohim, Chassa. It's like the literal sense of Chassa is to flee somewhere for protection. Figuratively, it's like to confide, in the figurative sense, to confide in one. So here, where it says Ashrei, happy, happiness, not blessed in the Baruch sense, but Ashrei, Asher, happiness in the beatitude sense, right? That state of heart and mind, happiness, right? Happiness is those who trust, who flee to Yahuwah, right? Who put their confidence in Yahuwah, in Jehovah. So here, just in sealing up, do homage in purity. I'm going to give you just the fullness here in this verse. Nashku. Remember nashak, to kiss, but nashak, to fasten, to equip, right? Nashku bar, which means son from the Aramaic sense, but it means son in the sense of the Hebrew sense of the heir to the throne is the bar. Nashku bar, kiss the son, equip the son, as they sought not to do with the greater David, the greater son. But from a Hebrew perspective, we can say do homage in purity. Because bar, like it says, what's that Psalm 24, where it says, Niki kapayim, Niki clean, kapayim palms, right? Ubar and purified, pure, bar, u and bar, lebab, the heart, ubar, lebab, and a purified heart. Now taking the bar from that root, we can bring out nashku bar, do homage, right? Do homage in purity. Do homage in purity, right? Do homage to the heir to the throne, right? Don't fight against Mashiach. Kiss the son. The RV margin says, kiss the son. Some ancient versions render, lay hold of or receive instruction. So there's some who have studied this psalm in the ancient versions and translates it more as not just kiss the son or do homage in purity, but lay hold of, or the sense of lay hold of instruction or lay hold of receive instructions. Others bring out from studying this the nashku bar as worship in purity. Modern scholars have abandoned the so-called, they call this the impossible translation. Some call the kiss the son an impossible translation with its theological implications. All right? Do homage is literally kiss. We have the sense of doing homage. So when it says kiss the son, it meant to do homage to the heir apparent, to the heir to the throne. Where do we have an example of this? 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 1, where doing homage, literally in the Hebrew, like here, is the nashak sense, which means to kiss. And to kiss the hand or the foot is still symbolic of an act of homage. The word for purity, bar, it occurs in the phrase pure in heart, even in Psalm 60, actually Psalm 70, 73 and 1. And that is its intention here from a Hebrew perspective. With sincerity of heart, acknowledge me, acknowledge I, Yahweh is saying to them, right? And the king is saying, as God's anointed, as the elect of God, as Yahweh's Moshiach, and thereby avoid incurring his anger. This is the spiritual message of the King of Kings to the League of Nations, right, of Gentiles that provoke, some call it the second woe, right? Ye, y'all perish in the way, right? Do homage and purity, lest he be angry and y'all perish in the way, when suddenly his wrath is kindled. Happy are all they that take refuge in him. Y'all perish in the way. Doesn't this sound like Psalm 1 verse 6? Right? Psalm 1 verse 6. What does Psalm 1 verse 6 says? For Yahuwah regardeth the way of the righteous. Ki yodea Yahuwah derekas adikim. But the way of the wicked with dereka rishaim. Tobed, perish, is lost, is abandoned. With direct the way, rishaim, of the wicked, the ratchet, the defiant ones. With dereka rishaim, tobed. What do we have right here? What we have here where it says with tobdu, and y'all tobdu, right? Perish, derek, in the way, or the way perish. Y'all perish in the derek. So here we have a reminiscence of that. The way of the wicked shall perish in Psalm 2. The connection between the two ways of individuals, Psalm 1, and the two ways of nation, nationalities, people, groups. Last part of this Psalm here, KJV brings it out as blessed is the man. As we said, that's not the Barak. Barak is not the root word right there, but it's the Asher, right? And here's the Ashrei. As when Yeshua Robenu said, blessed, the Beatitudes. It's the happiness, right? You will get this true Beatitude happiness here. Ashrei call Jose Bo. The psalm ends on the same note as that struck at the beginning of Psalm 1. Here, the seal up right here. Psalm 1, where it says, Ashrei Haish. Happiness is the man. Happy is the man that hath not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. Ashrei Haish, the man. Ashrei Haish Asher Loa Halak. Ba Itzata Rishaim. Uva dereka hataim lo amada uba moshab leitzim lo yashab. So happiness of the man that does not walk in the counsel, the advice of the defiant ones, the wicked ones, nor stands in the way of the sinners, the uckers, nor sits in or sat in the seat of the scornful, of the mockers. So that Ashrei at the beginning of Psalm 1, the ancient connection of these two psalms as one. Every psalm that was a favorite of Dawid is said that he began with Ashrei, happiness, and he ended with Ashrei, happiness. Here we have Ashrei, call Jose Bo, happiness of all those who trust in him. Yes. Give thanks. The word, sound, and power right here. Chabarim. Went a little bit over right there, but a full of all the sections of today's daily psalm, important prophetic psalm. And I have to say, Odeh, Yahuwah Elohai. I just give thanks to Yahuwah, my Elohim, I Elohim Eloheinu. There's some revelation that were revealed here that I have to meditate on. Be well, brothers and sisters and brothers. Shalom, Chabarim, Bashem, Yeshua, HaMoshiach. Yes, peace and greetings to the I and the King of Kings Christ. Right here, Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, Laila Tov. Have a good night. Boker Tov. Have a good dawning. Right, the morning, the dawning. And also Boker Sahoraim Tovim. Have a good afternoon for those who may be hearing this, whether it's Laila, night, Boker, morning. Have a good day. Blessed is Yahweh. Shalom, Chaverim. Shalom. Yeshua Shalom.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.